Kushina Uzumaki was many things: fiery, passionate, fiercely loyal. But above all, she was a mother who would cross any line for her child, even if that meant summoning a figure that the world had long considered a myth, a demon in human skin. By obscure and forbidden means, she began the right to call upon one of her clan's most formidable guardians to watch over her son. In a ruined glade just beyond the borders of the hidden leaf village, three figures lay amidst the debris. A young woman with vivid red hair, dressed in a sleeveless white blouse under a loose green gown, knelt beside a wailing infant. Nearby, the lifeless body of a blond man lay still, clad in a blue outfit and a white cloak bearing flame-like patterns at the hem. These were Kushina, Minato, and their newborn son, Naruto. Kushina's tear-filled eyes gazed down at the bundle in her arms. The baby's fine red hair and whisker-like birthmarks tugged at her heart. As his cries filled the air, she rocked him gently, her strength waning with every second. "Shhh, my little boy," she whispered hoarsely. "I'm so sorry I won't see your first steps. Hear your first words, chase off your future fangirls, Teben." Her voice cracked, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I won't be there for you, but your idiot father made sure someone would come. Maybe not from where he'd expect, but help will come." As blood filled her lungs, Kushina coughed violently, grimacing in pain. "Damn fox trying to claw its way through to my baby," she cursed inwardly. "He'll come, sweetheart. Just hold on through the pain and hate, and he'll find you." Her voice faded as she fought for one last breath. "So please have hope, Naruto." And with those words, Kushina Uzumaki passed on. Minutes later, a gray-clad elder, followed by two masked ANBU operatives, entered the clearing. It was Hiruzen Sarutobi, the third Hokage. He looked down at Minato's fallen form, then at Kushina, still cradling the baby. The infant's cries pierced the quiet as Hiruzen gently lifted him from his mother's cold arms. "Barely an hour old and already orphaned. And your hardships are only beginning, young one," he thought, sorrow in his heart. "In you," Hiruzen said gravely, "prepare the bodies for a proper burial, then report to the council chambers. We still have much to discuss." The ANBU nodded and began forming hand signs, preparing a fire release technique to carry out his orders. 3 years later, October 10, a man stood silently in a wooded area outside Konoha, watching the space with a focused gaze. So this is where the trail ended, he thought. He was tall and slender, with slick black hair and a sharp, pale face. Dressed in a gray coat lined with pale blue patterns and a pendant bearing the Uzumaki spiral around his neck, he stood as still as a statue. Riizo had arrived. He closed his eyes, letting his chakra spread through the area like mist. When he opened them again, his expression was grim. "The Reaper Death Seal, only used as a last resort. You really were desperate, Kushina-sama." He glanced in the direction of the hidden leaf. "I should find the old monkey and ensure her legacy wasn't squandered." And with that, he walked calmly toward the village gate. Konoha Orphanage. A small child with unruly red hair curled up on a tattered mattress, bruises littering his tiny frame. His stomach growled, but the pain was nothing new. Other kids had beaten him again. Even though masked shinobi had intervened, he'd missed supper and the matron refused to feed him. A brat who can't follow the rules doesn't deserve to eat. This was Naruto's life. Isolation, beatings, hunger. The only warmth he ever knew came from the rare visits by the old man in the funny hat and the voice in his dreams, soft and feminine, whispering the same message: "Have hope. He will come." He didn't understand the words, but they comforted him. Then came the creak of his door. Naruto's eyes snapped open. The matron stood in the doorway, smiling eerily. Something glinted behind her back. "Finally alone, little beast. My friends are keeping prying eyes busy. Time to finish what the fourth started," she cooed, drawing a small kunai. Naruto backed away, heart pounding. He wished this was just another nightmare. "For my brother die, you moan," she screamed before freezing mid-step. A sharp sound followed, like something slicing flesh. She collapsed forward, revealing a gleaming axe embedded in her back. Before he could scream, a smooth, almost haunting voice echoed from the hallway. "Well now, that was unexpected, but not unwelcome," the voice said. A tall figure stepped into the room. "At last, we meet, young master." 30 minutes earlier, village gates. As Riizo approached, he overheard the guards. "If we nail this shift, Kotsu, we might make it into the Jounin exams," said the one with the bandana. The other guard snorted. "Right, the last guys worked this gate for years and got nothing for it." They turned as Riizo arrived. "State your business in Konoha," Kotsu asked, eyeing him warily. Riizo barely gave him a glance. I'm here on Uzushio's behalf. I must speak to the Hokage. The name froze them both. Will arrange an escort. Izumo offered hastily. No need. I'll find the way, Riizo said calmly, eyes already drifting toward the village orphanage before vanishing in a blur. The guards exchanged panicked glances and sprinted to inform the Hokage. Back at the orphanage, Riizo moved silently through the halls. The signature he tracked was unmistakably Uzumaki, so similar to Kushina's it made his chest ache. He peered into a room to find an old woman looming over a terrified child, kunai in hand. He has her eyes, her hair. So this is her son. Clever Kushina-sama. His heart stopped as the woman raised her blade. For my brother now die moan. With a flick of his wrist, Riizo sent one of his many axes flying into her back. She died instantly. Stepping into the room, he addressed the boy. Quite the surprise, young master. Naruto blinked, trembling. The voice, she said, you'd come, was that? You, Riizo's eyes widened then softened. A smile tugged at his lips. Yes, young lord, I have come to take you somewhere safe. May I know your name? Naruto Uzumati Titeben, he declared proudly, before clamping his hands over his mouth in embarrassment. Riizo chuckled warmly. Without question, his mother's child. Once he composed himself, he turned to Naruto. Give me a moment to send a message, then we'll leave for your new home. Naruto nodded eagerly. Riizo made a series of hand signs, and a shadow peeled itself from the wall, slipping away silently. Scooping the boy into his arms, Riizo stepped out into the night, carrying the last hope of Uzushio with him, away from a village that had failed him before he even had a chance. Hokage Tower Hiruzen Sarutobi, the reinstated third Hokage of the Hidden Leaf, sat alone in his office, puffing slowly on his pipe, the silence of the room broken only by the faint crackle of burning tobacco. With his ANBU dismissed for the evening, he found himself trapped in reflection, haunted by his past failures. His strained bond with his son, Minato's death, Orochimaru's betrayal. Yet nothing weighed more heavily than his greatest regret, Naruto. Drawing a long breath, he stared at the ceiling, smoke curling from his lips as he muttered, So, the executioner of Uzushio has entered my village. A dark figure peeled itself from the shadows of the room, emerging slowly until it took the shape of a man clad in armor. Cage Riizo. Riizo's eyes narrowed as he looked down at the Hokage. Before anything else, know this, Uzushio has formally severed all diplomatic and trade agreements with the Leaf, as per discoveries I made before arriving here. Hiruzen's expression tightened, as if he'd aged a year in a second. The civilian council won't be pleased, but I expected as much the moment you entered the village. Riizo's brow twitched at the mention of the civilian council, but moved on. Depending on how you explain your village's treatment of Naruto Uzumaki, will decide whether this becomes war. Hiruzen nodded solemnly. What would you have me answer? Why was he abandoned in an orphanage where he was clearly abused? The Hokage sighed, his voice heavy with weariness. A combination of factors. But I suppose it began the night of the Nine-Tails attack. 3 years ago, Konoha Council Chambers. The chamber was wide, with rows of elevated seats flanking either side of the Hokage's chair. Behind it sat 3 smaller thrones reserved for advisors. Cradling a small, blanket-trapped infant, Hiruzen entered and approached the central seat, silencing the whispers and questions with his presence alone. Third Hokage-sama, any word on the fourth? What of the Nine-Tails? Is the demon finally slain? The left row, the civilian council, voiced their demands. On the right sat the shinobi council. The clan heads, stoic and silent, watching Hiruzen carefully. Once seated, the aged Hokage declared, As some may have guessed, the fourth Hokage has defeated the Nine-Tails. But he paid for that victory with his life. He allowed the shock to settle before continuing. Effective immediately, I will resume the mantle of Hokage. Any objections? None dared speak. A voice broke the silence. Hokage-sama, what became of the beast? Hiruzen turned to the source Danzo, leaning on a cane, most of his form hidden beneath a cloak. Of course Danzo would bring this up, Hiruzen thought grimly. Minato used a forbidden sealing technique passed down by the Uzumaki to bind the fox's spirit into a newborn child. He wished for the child to be honored, as the hero who imprisoned the beast. At first, silence. Then chaos erupted from the civilian council. Kill the demon, destroy it, honor the fourth. Enough, Hiruzen roared, his killing intent washing over the room. From this moment, Naruto's status is an S-rank secret. Anyone who leaks this information will be executed on the spot. Am I understood? The shinobi council nodded grimly. Tsume Inuzuka even smirked fiercely, nodding like an eager wolf. The civilian council fell into uneasy silence. We'll convene later to discuss rebuilding and security, the Hokage concluded. Back in the present, Hiruzen exhaled. Despite our efforts, the secret leaked. I suspect some shinobi, but no proof ever surfaced. Riizo nodded. That explains the public hostility and the assassination attempt. But why was he left in the orphanage? The Hokage stood in shock. What attempt? Riizo raised a hand to calm him. The matron, she has been dealt with, now explain the orphanage. Grumbling at the old nickname, Hiruzen answered. The civilian council blocked clan adoptions. The Inuzuka and Aburame tried, but the council insisted Naruto was a civilian and had to be processed through them. Paperwork vanished, time and again. Riizo stared at him for a long moment before chuckling, a low, dark sound that grew into a harsh cackle, his killing intent spilling forth. So this is what remains of the man once called the Professor, the god of shinobi, reduced to a puppet of civilians. Hiruzen was too stunned to reply. If your sensei saw you now, they'd be ashamed. I mourn for the Monkey King, forced to obey such spineless masters. He exhaled, then steadied his voice. There will be no war, Hiruzen. I see now your intentions were not malice, but heed me, get your house in order. The tides are watching. With that, Riizo vanished back into the darkness. Hiruzen sank into his chair. Have I really strayed this far? He summoned an ANBU. Bring me Danzo. It's time the council remembers why I survived 3 wars. The ANBU vanished in a flicker. Beneath his mask, a rare smile crept across his face. At last, this village might rise again. Land of Waves, Riizo landed in a quiet clearing, carrying Naruto in his arms. He gently set the boy down before beginning to sketch several symbols in the dirt. This should be far enough, my lord. We still have a journey ahead, but I doubt we'll see pursuers. Naruto looked uncertain. Mister, Riizo paused, chuckling. I never gave you my name, did I? Your mother knew me as Cage Riizo. Naruto nodded, still thoughtful. What happened to the matron? Riizo sighed. She intended to kill you, my lord. As Cage of Uzushio, I did what was necessary to protect our kin. That's all you need to know, never harm you again. Naruto nodded again, though his expression was troubled. Just then, laughter rang out from the woods. A gang of bandits emerged, crude weapons in hand. Well. Looks like we found a fat purse today, one sneered. Hand over your valuables, old man, and maybe we won't gut you. Another jeered. Leave the brat, Gato pays well for kids like him. Riizo calmly assessed them, 16 in total. He stepped protectively in front of Naruto. My lord, he said softly, whatever happens next, do not look away. Understand? Naruto's wide eyes met his, he nodded. Good, Riizo smiled. You must learn there are 3 types of people in this world. As the bandits advanced, a ceiling formation suddenly ignited beneath their feet. Before they could react, an invisible force bound their limbs, locking their feet to the ground and pinning their arms at their sides. Men like you, young master, are meant to command, Riizo said calmly, walking toward the immobilized attackers. With a graceful flick of his wrists, 2 small hand axes materialized in his grasp. Each one bore a black leather grip adorned with gold accents, and a wickedly curved blade gleamed at the end. While others, like myself, are fated to serve, he continued, hurling the weapons with precision. The frozen bandits could do nothing but stare as death came for them. One by one, they fell, some with axes buried in their torsos, others decapitated in a flash of steel. And lastly, Riizo added as the next group of 9 surged forward, there are fools like these destined for nothing but the grave. This time, he raised his hands and 4 axes appeared, hovering in the air behind him in a square formation. With a subtle gesture, they began to spin rapidly, creating a whirring, saw-like sound. Naruto watched in awe as Riizo vanished from view, only to reappear behind the slowest of the charging men, an axe pressed against the bandit's throat. Looking back at Naruto, Riizo locked eyes with his young lord and swiftly slashed the man's neck. As though triggered by that single strike, the rest of the group collapsed, some dismembered, others cleaved deeply. Frozen in a mix of fear and admiration, Naruto stared at the man who had rescued him from the orphanage. Blood spattered Riizo's coat, and crimson droplets dripped from his hands, the axes now gone. Riizo knelt before him. Do you understand now, Naruto? He asked gently. Still shaken, Naruto nodded slowly. His young mind struggled to process the massacre, but the message etched itself into his soul. There are those born to rule, those sworn to obey, and those destined to be crushed. Rest now, my lord, Riizo said, rising to clear the field of corpses and resetting the seal. We still have time before the ship reaches port. Konoha Council chambers half an hour earlier, a summons had been issued for an emergency council session in Konoha. Representing the shinobi clans were Aburame Shibai, Uchiha Fugaku, Inyuzu Katsumi, Hyuga Hayashi, Akimichi Chusa, Yamanaka Inoichi, and Nara Shikaku. Opposite them sat the civilian council, 8 prominent merchants and financiers from the village and the land of fire. Lacking individual sway, they typically pushed motions through their speaker, Korzo Dan, to present a united front. Behind them sat the 3 elders, Shimura Danzo, Udatane Koharu, and Mitokado Himura. The Hokage seat, however, remained conspicuously vacant. Where is the Hokage? He drags us into this so-called emergency meeting and then doesn't bother to show up, Korzo Dan bellowed, earning nods from his civilian peers. Watch your mouth, merchant, Tsume snapped. When the Hokage speaks, you don't whine, you salute and ask how high you need to jump. The doors burst open, silencing the chamber. Sarutobi Hiruzen strode in, clad in battle gear rather than ceremonial robes. Flanking him were a masked ANBU commander in a dragon-themed cloak, and a wild-haired man with red facial streaks, horned headband, and a red haori over green shinobi garb, none other than Jiraiya. Without a word, Hiruzen took his seat. He lit his pipe and exhaled a stream of smoke into the air, tension mounting. A fool from the civilian council finally broke the silence. Who do you think you are, Hiruzen? You waltz in here like you own the place, and who even are these 2 standing beside you? Hiruzen didn't speak. Instead, he gestured. A shadowy figure in a dark cloak, bearing the kanji for root on his mask, dropped behind the civilian and slit his throat before vanishing. The man collapsed, blood soaking the desk as his peers gaped in horror. The shinobi council stiffened in alert silence. Hiruzen puffed calmly on his pipe before speaking. I've been far too lenient, he said. I've given power over military assets to civilians. I've allowed interference in academy training. And now I have reports of bribery, blackmail, and treason within these very halls. Gasps filled the room. And during the recent Kyuubi festival, he continued, a riot broke out. My ANBU, tasked with protecting one Uzumaki Naruto, were drawn away, and in that moment an attempt was made on the boy's life. The room froze. Fortunately, Hiruzen said, Naruto was removed from the village by a trusted ally of his clan. Before questions could arise, he raised a hand. Due to gross negligence, attempted murder of a Jinchuriki, and undermining village security, I hereby declare the civilian council guilty of treason. Ryu, he ordered, deliver them to Ibiki. No restraints on his methods. The masked ANBU nodded, signaling his squad. In seconds, the civilians were seized and removed, protesting in vain. Hiruzen allowed a rare smirk. Now that the rod is gone, we can rebuild. Jiraiya will remain in the village to help restructure the academy and manage intelligence operations. He took another puff. Tsunade will return to oversee the hospital and establish her medical corps. And yes, Root will be reinstated, under strict orders to eliminate sedition. Hayashi spoke up. With the Kyuubi host gone, what of our deterrent? What's the plan, Hokage-sama? Danzo chuckled darkly. The boy was taken by Kage Riizo, the executioner of Uzushio, a war-hardened patriot. We could attack him, yes, but he'd cripple us before he fell. Still, he added, my agents report that Taki has sealed the Nanabi into a young girl, an unloved one. We could rescue her. Hiruzen nodded slowly. Do it. Bring her here. Her identity must remain a secret. Jiraiya will train her. If any of this leaks, I will personally execute the traitor. Is that clear? A chorus of firm, yes, sir, echoed through the chamber. That will conclude this meeting. Jiraiya, stay behind. There's something we need to discuss, Hiruzen said, locking eyes with his former student. Once the last of the council had departed, Jiraiya finally spoke. So this is why you summoned me, old man? He asked, his tone flat and his expression weary. Hiruzen gave a grave nod. Indeed. But spare me the mourning, Jiraiya. You've had time enough to grieve. I need our shinobi better trained, capable of gathering intelligence and safeguarding it. Mastery isn't necessary, but competence is. And I'll need you to get in contact with Tsunade. We may need her soon. He paused, his tone growing heavier. One more thing. I need you to reach out to Uzushio and make sure Naruto is being cared for. If it means appealing to Riizo directly, so be it, but tread carefully, don't provoke him. Jirya nodded solemnly. He'd heard the rumors about Riizo. The man supposedly ran a network of spies rivaling his own. Understood, sensei. As long as it's just about Naruto's well-being, I don't imagine he'll object. He turned to leave but halted, his gaze drifting to the still body laid out in the chamber. One thing I forgot to ask, how did you get Danzo to hand over Root? Hiruzen smirked faintly. It was easier than you'd think, my student. Flashback: the Hokage's office. Danzo stood opposite Hiruzen, who was radiating barely restrained fury. I know about Root, Danzo, he said coldly. Danzo's gaze narrowed. I have no idea. Silence, Hiruzen snapped. From this point forward, Root answers to me. All missions go through my desk, and Root will serve as an internal security force. I will not allow any rogue elements to threaten my authority again. Am I clear? Danzo stared at him, stunned, until he broke into laughter. What's so amusing? Hiruzen demanded. Still chuckling, Danzo finally said, It's good to see the legendary god of shinobi again. Had you shown this resolve sooner, I might have welcomed oversight. I couldn't allow civilians to compromise operations just for a chance at profit, but now, perhaps I won't have to carry the burden alone. Hiruzen relaxed slightly, a faint smile tugging at his lips. Good. I want a full report on Root's past missions and any future plans. Danzo nodded, turning to go, when Hiruzen added, Also, I've been neglecting my training lately. Meet me at training ground 44 later for a spar. If you think you've still got some fight left in you. Danzo gave a dry chuckle. I believe I still have a few surprises left. I'll be there. End flashback. Danzo won't be a concern any longer, Hiruzen murmured, already preparing for their upcoming match. Land of Waves, Naruto and Riizo were finally aboard the vessel bound for Uzushio. At first, Naruto had been unsettled when the crew bowed upon seeing him, but he figured they were acknowledging Riizo's presence and let it go. Now, an hour into the voyage, the two were settled in a modest but comfortable cabin. Naruto turned to Riizo, curiosity bubbling up. Oji, what was dat ting you did with de? Duh, Riizo let out a sigh at the new nickname. I'll need to teach him etiquette soon. Just like Kushina-sama all over again, he thought wearily. Axes, he offered. When Naruto nodded enthusiastically, Riizo chuckled. That's a specialized technique passed down in my clan. We blend ninja arts with our weaponry, particularly axes. As Naruto looked ready to ask a dozen more questions, Riizo raised a hand to stop him. Would you like to hear a story instead, Naruto-sama? The boy lit up instantly, nodding with excitement. Then listen closely. This is the tale of how the Kage clan came to be. He leaned back. Long ago, we were a minor clan from Oni no Kuni, known for crafting and throwing axes with unmatched precision. During the clan wars, one of our own proposed using chakra to enhance our weapons, making them faster, sharper, even guiding them mentally. But the clan elders were cowards, fearing stronger clans like the Senju would wipe us out if we drew attention. Riizo glanced down and saw Naruto's rapt expression. He smiled fondly, so much like her. My ancestor left the clan, taking those who believed in his vision. They became mercenaries, seeking enough coin to forge their own path. But they were surrounded eventually, outnumbered by the enemies they had made. He paused dramatically. And then something incredible happened. What happened? Naruto nearly shouted. A red blur tore from the forest, standing between them and the enemy. He didn't move, he just stared at my ancestor. Even as soldiers flanked their foes and the enemy screamed in defeat, he never looked away. Riizo's smile widened. After the chaos ended, my ancestor expected demands, gold, loyalty, knowledge. But instead, the man simply smiled and said, I want him. My ancestor couldn't help but laugh. It was the first time in years he'd felt something like home. He leaned in close. From that day forward, our clan was renamed Kage to signify that we would always serve in the shadow of the Uzumaki. Since then, the heir of the Kage clan pledges loyalty to the heir of the Uzumaki. Naruto blinked. So, who are the Cielwan heirs now? Clan heirs, Riizo corrected gently. My son is the Kage clan's heir, and as for the Uzumaki, he smiled. That's you, Naruto-sama. Now rest, we'll reach your new home soon. Uzushio. A loud beeping echoed through a large, ornate room. The decor was a mixture of black, red, blue, and white, and in the center stood a luxurious bed with a blue comforter bearing the Uzumaki swirl. From beneath the covers, a small hand emerged to smack the alarm off. A groggy 7-year-old Naruto sat up and stretched. Man, I was having the best dream about a giant ramen bowl, he thought. After dressing, he studied himself in the mirror, wearing black shorts, a white shirt, and a pair of decorative hairpieces on his crimson-red hair. His teeth and nails had slowly sharpened over time, but he assumed it was just a clan trait. After eating breakfast, he made his way to the front of his new home, an estate Riizo had told him was once reserved for Uzumaki clan leaders. There, he was met by a stern bald man with a scar running down over his right eye, which was sealed shut. He wore a dark indigo outfit and a red scarf wrapped around his neck and jaw. Naruto recalled the day they met. Flashback Uzushio Tower, a 5-year-old Naruto pouted as Riizo tried to keep a straight face. Beside them stood Shuichi, Riizo's son, and the solemn bodyguard. I don't need a bodyguard Titebane, Naruto protested. Riizo sighed. First, Naruto-sama, what did I say about addressing those below your station? Naruto nodded, then grinned cheekily. Yeah, but you're still Oji. Both cagemen facepalmed simultaneously. Riizo continued, tired but firm. You're the daimyo of our nation and soon, the Uzushio. Even the strongest leaders need protection. It's tradition, not weakness. He gestured to the bald man. This is Akatsuki. Lord Mifune himself recommended him. The samurai named Akatsuki took that as his cue, stepping forward and kneeling before Naruto. In accordance with the pact between Uzu no Kuni and Tetsu no Kuni, I am to serve as the founding member of Uzu's samurai corps, train future generations, and act as guardian to the young daimyo. Will you permit me to fulfill my duty, my lord, or shall I carry the weight of dishonor? Naruto blinked in mild surprise. Well, when you put it that way, fine. He sighed. But any more guards should be assigned to those who actually need them. His declaration brought amused smiles from the older men. My lord, there are none more worthy. Still, we will make efforts to provide security across Uzu settlements as more warriors complete their training. All right then, Naruto cheered. Come on, Kai-kun. I bet the ramen stall's open. He dashed out of the tower, his ever-exasperated shadow trailing close behind. End flashback. Are you ready for your first day at the academy, Uzumaki-sama? Akatsuki asked as they stepped through the gates of the estate. Naruto nodded enthusiastically. Yeah, it's gonna be amazing. I'll learn cool jutsu and be ready to take the hat from uncle in no time. He rambled excitedly. Along the way, they met up with Shuichi before arriving at the academy. Now, young master, Akatsuki said, I'll be here when classes end. Then we'll go visit Riizo, so please, try not to disappear again, all right? Naruto gave an absent-minded nod before bolting into the academy grounds, leaving his guard groaning. Taking pity on the man, Shuichi offered a small smile. Don't worry, Akatsuki-san, I'll keep him from wandering off. The samurai bowed in relief before departing to oversee new recruits. Shuichi entered the academy with a sigh. Where did that energetic idiot run off to this time? He thought. 4 years later, Shimizu-san. If you're quite done napping, perhaps you can explain why the Kaguya clan came to Uzushio. Barked Toshiro-sensei at the cloaked form of AI Shimizu, one of Naruto's closest friends at the academy. It wasn't that people disliked Naruto. Most were just too intimidated by his title, frightened of his fanbase, or interested in him for superficial reasons. AI quickly snapped to attention. They joined because of the bloodline purges under the third Mizukage. Toshiro raised an eyebrow. Is that a guess or a statement, Shimizu-san? Statement, sir. Correct. The teacher gave a rare smile. Next question. Uzumaki-sama, what conditions were set for the Kaguya to be acknowledged as a major clan of Uzu? They were placed under a 3-year probation, had to share any non-clan exclusive jutsu from Kirigakure, and agree to a union with the Kage clan. Naruto answered without pause. Very good, the teacher praised. Class dismissed. Remember, tomorrow is sparring and basic transformation drills. With luck, we'll move to one-handed seals. Naruto grinned and hooked an arm around each of his 2 best friends before racing off toward the exit to wait for his bodyguard. As they waited, he glanced over his companions. Shuichi had grown taller and looked more like his father, with snowy white hair and twin red marks above his eyes. His clothing mirrored his father's style, though his version was black with pale blue trim. AI kept his black hair spiky and short, and his deep brown eyes were still as observant as ever. He now wore a navy sleeveless robe with shinobi pants and sandals, giving off a calm but tactical presence. Naruto still remembered the day they first met. Flashback Uzushio Tower, Lord Naruto, I'd like you to meet Shimizu AI, Riizo introduced. nudging the nervous boy forward. The two kids just stared at each other until Naruto extended his hand, smiling brightly. Hey, I'm Naruto. I like Uncle, Shuichi-kun, ramen, uzu, and the color blue tea tebane. Wanna be friends? AI stared at the loud redhead for a moment. Sure, I'd love to be your friend, Naruto-kun. As they shook hands, AI's face lit up with realization. I'm Shimizu AI. I don't really know, he mumbled sadly. Naruto's expression softened before pulling the boy into a warm hug. That's okay, he said brightly. We'll find out together. AI's eyes watered slightly, a faint blush on his cheeks. Okay, deep inside his mind, a voice echoed one phrase over and over. Exalted One. End flashback, you really should stay awake, AI-kun, Naruto scolded playfully. If you fail, we won't be on the same team, and we won't get Team Ramen. And Shuichi silenced him with a swift slap to the back of the head. Naruto glared at him as Shuichi whistled innocently, flipping one of his twin axes. AI sighed. I know, but I was working on my wire technique last night. Besides, history class is so dull. Naruto bounced in place. Did it work? Did you improve? Shuichi chuckled. Naruto's curiosity always amused him. AI nodded. Still needs speed, but I managed to bind all my tutor's limbs to trees this time, not just one or two. Shuichi scoffed. What's the point if it can't kill? Stronger opponents will break free. Naruto watched as the two began to bicker again. Team, AI started. Before it escalated, Naruto stepped in. Actually, he has a point, AI-kun. Maybe add a blade or some poison. If your target's weakened, the wires would be much more effective. AI thought it over. He's right. A quick slash to key tendons with poison, it could become lethal. Naruto smiled. So after Akatsuki gets here, want to head to my place and work on some jutsu? AI nodded. Shuichi thought for a second, then said, I'm in too, Naruto-sama. Seeing his bodyguard arrive, Naruto grabbed both friends and took off. 5 years later at 16, Naruto strode toward the academy gates with his ever-present friends and loyal guardian. The three had grown together, in skill and bond. Shuichi had grown lean and strong, now going shirtless under his coat, to reveal toned muscles and a bone-white pendant around his neck. It was discovered that he'd inherited the Shiketsumiyaku ability from the Kaguya woman who bore him, though he viewed her only as a means to an end. AI had matured too. He kept his hair short and sported a light stubble. His attire had evolved, dark gray coat with a fading blue stripe, leather gauntlets, and a belt of hooks. After Naruto's advice, he bought a giant sword modified to integrate his wires, turning him into a formidable precision fighter. Naruto himself had changed the most. His nails had hardened into claw-like points, forcing him to abandon footwear altogether. He wore loose gray pants tied with a black belt and a tight black shirt that covered his neck and part of his jaw. His right sleeve hung long and loose, while his left arm was bare, showcasing lean, defined muscle. Black fingerless gloves stretched to his elbows, and a dulled silver pauldron sat on his right shoulder with the Uzumaki emblem engraved into it. A leather strap ran to an empty holster on his back, waiting for a weapon yet to be revealed. When asked about the danger of wearing such loose clothing, Naruto simply replied, Well, guess I'll just have to move faster than my enemy's tea-tebane. He flashed a grin at his companions as they approached the academy gates. All right, guys, ready to become shinobi? Shuichi gave a confident smirk and nodded, while AI offered a soft smile. Hi. The trio entered their classroom and took their seats just as Toshiro-sensei was about to begin. All right, congratulations to everyone for making it this far in your training. Today's assessment will cover your academic knowledge, physical combat skills, ability to both cast and dispel illusions, and finally, practical demonstrations of 3 jutsu. A clone technique of your choice, substitution, and transformation. Let's begin with the written portion. Remember, get caught cheating 6 times and you fail, the teacher announced. Naruto glanced down at the exam. Question 1. What was the founding clan of Uzushio? Seriously, all right then. He quickly began answering. Question 23. Sunagakure is known for what type of jutsu, and why hasn't it spread beyond their borders? Okay, now it's getting trickier. He pressed on and soon turned in his paper, third after his own shadow, and assert Kabuto Yakushi. Kabuto Yakushi was the current heir to his clan, widely recognized for their advanced medical ninjutsu and extensive knowledge of poisons. Like many in his family, Kabuto was pale-skinned, with long white hair and a maroon cloak with a hood resembling a serpent's head. Rumors said the clan once held the snake summoning contract until it was stolen during the Second Shinobi War and wound up in Orochimaru's possession. Throughout their years at the academy, Naruto and Kabuto had developed a casual academic rivalry, Naruto dominating historical studies, while Kabuto excelled in biology and medicine. An hour later, the class assembled at the academy's sparring grounds. Their objective was to last at least 5 minutes against a junior shinobi while being evaluated by their instructor. Bonus points were awarded for actually defeating their opponent. Unsurprisingly, most of the non-clan students struggled to gain the upper hand. It was here that Naruto took note of a particular classmate. Hattori Ine, heiress to the Hattori clan, renowned for their assassination techniques and rumored to have eliminated high-ranking officials, including a few Kage. Ine had long, pale blonde hair tied in a high ponytail and piercing yellow eyes with black sclera. She wore a sleeveless blue top, loose pants of matching color, mesh armor underneath, and blue shinobi sandals. A gray scarf encircled her neck, and blue arm guards covered her from wrist to elbow. She gained notoriety for her tendency to beat up fangirls at the academy, which ironically improved their stealth skills. She also regularly brought her clan's signature weapon, a kusarigama. Utilizing her agility and family-trained taijutsu, Ine brought her opponent to their knees in under 2 minutes, blade to throat. Shuichi was next. He dodged the opponent's attacks casually for 3 minutes until the tutor overextended, allowing Shuichi to slip behind him and rest the edge of his axe at the man's throat. Kabuto's turn followed. He avoided combat entirely, simply dodging until the time ran out, stating disinterest in the exercise. When Naruto's name was called, he dropped into the traditional Uzumaki stance, feet staggered, front palm extended, rear hand behind his back. The Uzukin wasn't so much a fighting style as a graceful dance, designed to manipulate momentum and expose vulnerabilities. Though not a master, Riizo had said Naruto possessed a solid genin-level grasp of it. As the match started, Naruto redirected his opponent's attacks and circled around him until he found an opening, delivering a strike to the back of the neck that ended the fight instantly. 2 minutes flat. Last came AI. Many expected him to merely last the time limit, but he surprised them. He closed the distance in a flash, used a hook to trip the tutor, and before the man could rise, AI had his Jiang sword poised at his throat. 1 minute. Excellent work, everyone. Let's move on, Toshiro announced. The genjutsu portion went smoothly. Everyone was at least able to break free, though casting proved more difficult for some. During the ninjutsu portion, Naruto was called last. His friends had already received their forehead protectors. Uzumaki Naruto, his teacher, called. Naruto stepped forward, slightly nervous. All right, first. Transform into me, Toshiro instructed. Naruto nodded and performed a flawless transformation without hand signs. Toshiro inspected it and made notes. Now the substitution technique. Without warning, he flung a kunai. Naruto's eyes widened briefly before a chair replaced him just in time. Well done. Lastly, show me a clone technique. Hi, Naruto exclaimed, forming a one-handed seal. Water style. Water clone technique. Toshiro nodded as 3 perfect clones materialized from vapor in the air. Excellent, 3 element-based clones with a single hand sign. Congratulations, Uzumaki-sama. You pass. Beaming, Naruto accepted his Hittite, a black cloth bearing the Uzumaki spiral, and tied it around his neck just beneath his collar. Returning to class, he rejoined his friends, pride glowing on his face. All right, congratulations to all who passed. If this was your first or second attempt and you failed, good luck next year. For those who failed a 3rd time, stay behind for reassignment to the medical division, samurai dojo, or intelligence bureau based on your aptitude. The rest of you return next week for your team placements, Toshiro concluded with pride. Land of Fire Konoha Academy Yumino Uruka, a Chunin instructor, watched the graduating class with a satisfied smile. With brown hair tied in a high ponytail and a scar across his nose, he wore the standard green flak vest over black clothing. He hadn't seen a class with this much promise since the days of Hadake Kakashi. While many came from prominent clans, a handful of civilian-born students had persevered despite the new, demanding curriculum. Uruka reflected on the success of these changes. Each student had received basic interrogation training, underwent mandatory physical conditioning, and had access to specialized tutors in swordsmanship, genjutsu, medical ninjutsu, and toxins. Most notably, all students had already performed their first kill. Earlier that year, a field trip to a bandit camp ended with each student standing before a restrained prisoner, kunai in hand. Though the clanborn executed the task with minimal hesitation, many civilian students hesitated, some even withdrew from the program. But Uruka knew, better they face that now than freeze up on their first real mission, he thought grimly. Maybe now they'll live to see 20. Congratulations to each of you for reaching this stage. I look forward to seeing you all thrive, distinguish yourselves, and keep the will of fire burning. But above all, I hope you survive, Uruka finished, eyes scanning the proud young faces, each wearing their forehead protectors. Among them was Uchiha Sasuke, the second son of the Uchiha clan. His long black hair partially veiled his face, and he wore a white open-front shirt bearing the Uchiha crest, dark blue pants, a blue waistcloth, and black forearm guards reaching to his biceps. Around his waist was a purple rope belt tied in a knot, from which hung his blade, long and without a guard. Seated beside him, much to his irritation, was Haruno Sakura. Though often dismissed as a fangirl, Sakura had shown notable proficiency in medical ninjutsu and clear potential in genjutsu and taijutsu, the latter mostly due to her unnatural physical strength. She had short, rose-colored hair with 2 locks framing her face. Her outfit included the upper portion of a red mandarin-style dress with white circles, black gloves, mid-length boots, dark shorts beneath a short gray skirt, and elbow guards. Nearby sat Aburame Fu, an adopted member of the Aburame clan. Fu was a dark-skinned teen with short, teal hair held in place by a small orange clip. Unlike most of her clan, she wore a sleeveless white crop top over mesh armor, long white armguards, fishnet shorts under a small white apron-like skirt, and a large red-wrapped cylinder on her back. Tiny pores visible on her neck and wrists made some uneasy, a common reaction to her clan's bug-based techniques, even though her insects never left her body. Scanning further across the classroom, he spotted the newer iteration of the Ino Shikacho trio. The trio had grown noticeably tighter, especially since Ino had outgrown her fangirl behavior, something Sasuke appreciated. Still a bit loud and lazy, he thought, but at least they've managed to improve Choji's diet. I was seriously starting to worry. 5 more notable heirs were also in the classroom. Hyuga Hinata, now firmly recognized as her clan's heiress, she's truly come a long way, he mused. The loud and impulsive Inuzuka, Kiba sat nearby with his ever-present, shaggy companion Akamaru. Then there was the reserved Aburame Shino, easily one of the most capable genin here. Kurama Yakumo had made progress in taming her Edo spirit thanks to Jiraiya's help, still physically frail, but nothing a skilled sensei can't improve. Lastly, Shimura Sai, son of Danzo and heir to the Shimura name, always gave off an odd vibe with that eerie, ever-present smile. Then again, Danzo raised him. With his internal assessment complete, Uruka began announcing team placements. Team 1, Team 7, Uchiha Sasuke, Aburame Fu, and Haruno Sakura. 2 groans and 1 loud cheer echoed through the room. Uruka sighed and kept reading. Team 8, Hyuga Hinata, Inuzuka Kiba, and Aburame Shino. Team 9 is still in rotation. Team 10, Yamanaka Ino, Nara Shikamaru, and Akamichi Choji. Lastly, Team 11, Kurama Yakumo, Shimura Sai, and, 1 week later, Uzushio Naruto and his classmates were seated in the academy classroom, awaiting their team announcements. Their instructor, Toshiro, finally rose, clearly savoring the tension. Yes, squirm, you little gremlins, he thought with glee, the mental cackle of a long-suffering teacher nearly audible. Clearing his throat, he began, Team 1, Team 3. Uzumaki Naruto, Team 3, Uzumaki Naruto, Kage Shuichi, and Shimizu Ai. The trio reacted with whoops and laughter. Naruto, delighted to be paired with his 2 closest friends, barely paid attention to the rest of the announcements. Remain here, your Jonin instructors will be along shortly, Toshiro added. Shuichi noticed most of the teams being called away, until only theirs remained. Meanwhile, Naruto was off in his own world. On a team with Shuichi and Ai, Team Ramen is officially real. But before his noodle-filled fantasy could continue, a loud crash from outside the classroom interrupted him. Curious, he opened the window. NNNAARRRUU was all he heard before a white and purple blur slammed into him, launching him across the room. Kage and Ai immediately brandished their weapons, but just as they were about to attack, the identity of the attacker became clear. Tobai has been a good boy, Naru-chan. And Kage-sama approved Tobai's request. Now Tobai gets to be your sensei. Isn't that awesome, Naru-chan? The masked man exclaimed as he enthusiastically shook a dazed Naruto. Tobai was dressed in snug purple pants and gloves, paired with a white shirt and a long, split cloak of deep purple. A pale sash and belt were tied around his waist. On his back, a large war fan, gunbai edged in purple tamo, hung from a black chain. His face was concealed by a swirling white mask with 3 tamo-like holes evenly spaced around the center, and a tuft of dark hair peeked from behind. Ahem. Tobai-san, Shuichi said calmly. You might want to stop shaking him before you kill him. Tobai immediately released Naruto and rubbed the back of his head with a sheepish laugh. Tobai is sorry, Naru-chan. Naruto groaned, sitting up slowly. So, who's the poor team stuck with you as their sensei, Tobai? Flashback, 2 years ago, Uzushio Tower. Naruto and Riizo stood inside the Uzushi's office. As you know, Naruto-sama, each major village has its elite units. The 12 Guardians, 7 Swordsmen, Puppet Brigade, Blasting Corps, and the Kinkaku unit, Riizo explained. We now have our own Uzu's 9 Sharks. They'll serve as both our defense and primary response unit. He gestured toward 9 kneeling figures in matching purple garb and white masks. The one in the center had wild black hair, unlike the rest. Naruto blinked, then asked, can they even see through those masks? The center one leapt up. Tobai can see just fine. They said it's some kind of special film or something. I just think they're showing off. Want to be Tobai's friend? Naruto, caught off guard, replied, sure. In seconds, he was being spun through the air like a rag doll. Riizo sighed as the others scrambled to stop Tobai. Tobai, we do not spin our leader. And we definitely do not call him Naru-chan, Riizo scolded. Turning to Naruto, he added, apologies, Naruto-sama. That's Tobai, one of our few cage-level shinobi and the current leader of the 9 Sharks. Tobai grinned. Tobai is a good boy. Tobai will protect Uzu forever. His voice dropped into a darker tone. And anyone who threatens Uzu will be erased. Flashback end, that one's easy, Naru-chan. Tobai got the best team, Team 3, Tobai announced proudly. Then, in true Tobai fashion, he leapt out the window with a shout. To the training grounds, away! The 3 teammates watched their new instructor disappear in stunned silence. AI turned to Naruto. This is going to be our life now, isn't it? Naruto sighed heavily. Yeah, every day. Combat Grounds 22. Much like the other training fields in Uzu, Combat Ground 22 featured a sizable pond at its center, fringed with patches of grass and scattered trees that offered minimal cover. The trio of genin arrived to find their newly assigned instructor sketching symbols in the dirt, using the elongated hilt of his gunbai fan. Tobai perked up at their approach. Tobai has reviewed your academy profiles, but Tobai prefers personal evaluations. So, for today we're sparring. Tobai needs to see what each of you can do. Receiving 3 nods in return, Tobai grinned behind his mask and took a light hop backward. Excellent, Tobai declares Scruffles will go first, he said, pointing directly at AI. AI gave a hesitant nod and stepped forward cautiously. No need to be timid, Scruffles, Tobai teased. Strike like you're aiming to kill, or don't bother stepping forward. Swallowing hard, AI's demeanor shifted. Determination filled his eyes beneath his hood as he unsheathed his giant-style blade, gripping it in a reverse stance along his right arm, while a hooked wire spun loosely in his left. With knees bent and focus sharpened, he darted toward Tobai in a zigzag pattern. Tobai let him come, parrying the initial strike with his gunbai. AI then flung the hook with precision, but Tobai sidestepped, allowing the weapon to embed into a nearby tree. Using that movement to his advantage, AI maneuvered around Tobai in a circling rush, looping wires as he went. With one more anchored hook, Tobai found himself neatly ensnared. Rising to deliver the finishing strike, AI froze, the jounin had vanished. Is that all? Came a far colder tone from behind. Disappointing. Tobai now lounged on a tree branch overhead, gunbai lazily swaying from a chain and one leg dangling. If this is your best effort, I doubt you'll be much help to your team. Maybe I should put all 3 of you out of your misery now, it'd be merciful. Tobai observed the flickers of anger growing in the boy. Let's see just how deep his rage goes. Especially if I touch a nerve. That red-haired teammate of yours, he'd probably suffer the most. Good-looking kid. I know some slave networks that would pay quite a sum. Shut up, AI hissed through clenched teeth. Tobai smirked behind his mask. Now we're getting somewhere. Actually, I might keep him for myself. Who'd stop me? Certainly not a weakling like. He was abruptly cut off as a blade narrowly missed his face. Standing below, Ai's hood had fallen, and his eyes now burned with wild fury. A sinister grin stretched across his face. You'll pay for those blasphemies, wretch, Ai growled, voice laced with zeal. No one insults the exalted one in lives. Tobai blinked. Okay, didn't expect full-blown fanatic mode. He's faster now. Dangerous. As he defended against a flurry of strikes, Tobai found wires looping around him again, this time all the hooks thrown simultaneously, ricocheting and landing precisely to ensnare him. At the center, Ai pointed the blade dead at Tobai's chest and launched forward. Before the strike landed, Ai found himself yanked and trapped in his own wires, Tobai now holding the sword. We need to talk, Tobai said calmly, eyes locked onto Ai. You're not just Shimizu Ai, are you? The academy flagged your temper, but this, a twisted laugh echoed around them. That's right. I'm Akuma, loyal follower of the Exalted One. You planning to kill me now, heretic? It doesn't matter, he'll deal with you in due time. Tobai remained composed. Let me ask you this, Akuma. Are you a danger to your team or Uzu? Akuma scowled. Why the hell would I harm him? As for Uzu, meh, if he calls it home, then I guess I'd rather it not burn. Tobai nodded and cut him free. Akuma blinked, stunned, as Tobai handed him back his sword. You're letting me go, Tobai shrugged. Just a provocation, Akuma-san. I had no real intention of hurting your daimyo. Hopefully, this helped you identify your weaknesses. Also, let Ai take over again. I doubt the Exalted One wants to see his friend like this. Akuma hesitated, then finally nodded and let go. Ai slowly returned to himself, adjusted his hood and muttered, I guess you met him. I did, Tobai replied evenly. Do your teammates know? Ai shook his head. Tell them before the day ends. That's an order. With that, they rejoined the others. All right, Tobai called out, cheerfully returning to his eccentric persona. Tobai picks tall, pale, and disturbingly quiet. Shuichi silently stepped forward, axes in hand. Please don't just be your father's clone. Tobai mentally sighed as the pale boy launched one axe. Tobai casually sidestepped, but noticed the axe curving back behind him, a trick he'd seen before. He destroyed it with a downward slam of his gunbai. Kid, I've sparred with your dad more times than I can count. I know your family's gimmicks. Shuichi cursed under his breath and rushed toward a tree, throwing his second axe, only for it to meet the same fate. Tobai turned, prepared to end the match, but Shuichi was gone. A sudden white blur came from behind, forcing Tobai into evasive motion. Landing a few meters away, he observed something unexpected. Lodged in the ground was a bone-like axe. Shuichi stood nearby, his coat draped around his waist, smirking. Tobai grinned inwardly. So the little experiment worked. Shuichi raised a hand in a half-rat seal and began fading into the tree's shadow. Shadow style. Shadow walker technique. Tobai sensed his chakra, and deciding the match was over, channeled wind chakra into his fan and swung. A powerful gust blew Shuichi from the shadows and slammed him into a nearby tree. Before Shuichi could recover, Tobai was already in front of him, a blade at his throat and hand over his face. Tobai claims victory. Shuichi groaned but nodded, retrieving his coat and rejoining the others. And now, it's Naru-chan's turn, Tobai beamed. Naruto pulled a small scroll from his pocket, smeared a drop of blood, and unsealed it with a burst of smoke. When it cleared, Naruto stood ready, one arm forward and relaxed, legs coiled. In his right hand hung a long scythe angled downward, its black handle crossing at the blade's base. So, Riizo gave him Kushina's scythe, Tobai mused. Let's see if he taught him the technique too. Naruto charged forward, scythe swirling. Tobai parried with his gunbai. Naruto used the recoil to spin, striking with the blunt end and catching Tobai off guard. He's got the rhythm. The swirling death technique. Strike through momentum, slip past defenses, and devastate in groups. Lacks Kushina's brute strength, but the form is there. Tobai continued his defense, now eager to see what else Naruto had in store. Naruto noticed that although his attacks were landing, it was only with the flat side of his scythe. He lacked the strength to deal any meaningful damage with it, at least for now. Eventually, he leapt back and performed a quick sequence of half-formed hand seals, before slamming his palm onto the ground. Uzumaki hidden technique, Chains of Redemption. As he invoked the jutsu's name in his mind, dark chains tinged with a crimson glow burst from the earth, encircling the masked Jounin and rapidly binding him, attempting to force him down. The man chuckled under his breath. Ha, looks like he's been studying his mother's notes. Kushina was fond of using these chains whenever we got out of line. As the masked Jounin began to drop to one knee, he swiftly performed a small set of hand signs before vanishing in an instant. Naruto's eyes widened in alarm. Crap, where did he go? Before he could react, a hand shot out and clutched his ankle, pulling him into the earth up to his neck. That wasn't bad, Naru-chan. But you've still got a long way to go if you want to catch up to me. Now let's rejoin the others, shall we? Once they regrouped, the Jounin gathered his team. All right, now that we've wrapped up sparring, let's do some introductions. Tobai-sensei, AI asked hesitantly. Why didn't we do that first? Tobai crossed his arms with mock seriousness. Because AI-chan, Tobai forgot. A collective sweat drop followed as Tobai continued. Tobai will go first. I'm Tobai, I like. Redheads my gunbai, sweets my students, and loud explosions. I dislike white-haired, lazy perverts, arrogant clans, and anyone who touches my sweets. My dream is to help you all become the greatest shinobi you can be. AI went next. I'm Shimizu AI. I like Narukun, learning jutsu and swimming. I dislike Shuichi, canines, and Kiri. My goal is to one day serve as Jounin commander under the future Uzukage. When it was his turn, Naruto stood proudly. I'm Uzumaki Naruto. I like my friends, ramen, uzu, gardening, and Riizo. I dislike cranky old ladies, being bored, doors, and snobs. My dream is to become strong enough to lead Uzu into a golden future as Uzukage Titeben. He quickly slapped his hand over his mouth, embarrassed. Thought I'd shaken that habit. Shuichi offered a rare smile before speaking. Cage Shuichi, I like Naruto-sama, strategy games, knowledge, and honing my bloodline abilities. I dislike AI, fools, tomatoes, and anyone who threatens my lord's ambitions. My goal is to protect Naruto-sama and ensure his vision becomes reality, no matter the cost. Tobai clapped his hands. Great, we'll meet here again tomorrow. AI, don't forget to explain your situation to your teammates before then. Naruto-chan, Riizo wants to see you, says it's time to reveal a certain secret. Uzukage Tower Riizo sat behind his desk, shuffling through village documents when he sensed a familiar chakra flare at the window. You called for me, uncle, Naruto asked from the sill. Riizo sighed. Naruto-sama, must you always use the window? The door functions perfectly well. Naruto gave the door a suspicious look. I don't trust it. We're shinobi, sneaky by nature. Doors are too normal, hiding who knows what. They're an affront to everything we stand for. Titeben. Pinching the bridge of his nose, Riizo groaned. Let's skip the door rant this time, shall we? You're the future daimyo and next Uzukage, and that comes with responsibility. Things like alliances and trade relations. Naruto gave a sharp nod, clearly listening now. Riizo smiled. We've received alliance requests and trade proposals. Additionally, we already have partnerships with the Land of Iron and the Land of Water. Naruto studied the documents. Nami no Kuni is small and poor, but that's what makes it ideal. No one would expect an alliance there. If we help them recover, they'll be loyal and valuable allies. Plus, they've only asked us to remove someone named Gato. Riizo nodded. Excellent insight. Their location is perfect for trade by sea. Naruto moved to the trade agreements. How about Yu no Kuni and Yuki no Kuni? Riizo raised a brow. Why those two? Well, Yu no Kuni just shut down their shinobi village. No competition for missions. It's a tourist hotspot, so word of our deeds would spread faster. Yuki no Kuni reportedly has internal strife between their daimyo and village. They're known for advanced tech, including chakra armor that could give our samurai an edge. Riizo looked impressed. And not the shinobi, Naruto shook his head. Too expensive to mass-produce for both. The samurai need it more to stay relevant in combat. Riizo smiled. Well reasoned. We'll proceed with the Nami alliance and begin removing Gato. I'll start talks with Yuki and Yu no Kuni. Naruto grinned, pleased, until Riizo's expression grew heavy. Naruto-sama, I need to tell you what happened the night your parents died. Naruto's smile faded. Go ahead. Riizo took a deep breath. The nine-tailed fox attacked Konoha on your birthday. Your parents, Minato and Kushina, stopped it using a forbidden Uzumaki seal. One of them summoned the Reaper and gave their soul to trap the beast inside a newborn Yu. I don't know which one used the jutsu, but it was likely Kushina. Naruto went silent, staring at the floor. So, they sealed the strongest tailed beast inside me. At Riizo's nod, Naruto grinned. That's amazing, Titeben. My parents were total legends. Riizo chuckled at the boy's enthusiasm. Naruto then sat cross-legged in front of the desk. What are you doing, Naruto-sama? Trying to talk to the Kyuubi, but before he could finish, he was yanked into his mind. Naruto's mindscape. Naruto found himself before a misty, mountainous cave surrounded by dense forest. Metal bars blocked the entrance. A deep voice echoed from within. So, the jailer finally arrives. Lonely doesn't begin to describe it. Come closer, little morsel. Don't you want to see me in all my glory? As Naruto stepped forward, the shadows peeled away, revealing the beast. Are you what I expected? Maybe not. Inside the cell stood a tall, muscular, nude man with dark orange hair, glowing red eyes, claws, and 9 swaying tails. Naruto's eyes couldn't help but drift downward. A polite cough broke his trance. Eyes up here, Warden. Blushing, Naruto tried to play it cool. So you're the Kyuubi. Straight to the point, are we? The man replied. I expected more appreciation for the upgrades I've given your body. Upgrades? Sharp claws and fangs aren't exactly human traits. I'm chakra-given form, I take whatever appearance I like. A fox form fits my nature, but this is just as valid. Naruto scratched his head sheepishly. The fox gave a tired sigh. By the sage, and this is my host. Naruto finally asked the question that had been on his mind. What's your real name? The fox's eyes narrowed slightly, then a smirk curled across his face. So you want to know my name, Warden? Real world, Kuro. Naruto shouted as he returned to the real world, his face flushed. He looked around, panting, and realized he was back in his bedroom. Maybe it was just a dream, he thought. As he moved, he noticed his pants felt wet and sticky. A rather vivid dream, he mused, blushing at the thought. I'm offended you'd call me just a dream, Warden. The familiar, sultry voice of the Kyuubi echoed in his mind. Naruto jumped at the voice. Where are you? How did you break free of the seal? He exclaimed. Kurama chuckled. I'm still inside of you, Warden, perhaps quite literally if you play your cards right. I used our little moment together to create a mental link. Now you can think to me, and I can fill your mind with suggestions. Naruto's face reddened at the innuendo. Perverted fox. I prefer living, breathing humans, not chakra manifestations, Teben, he thought. Kurama smirked. Well, you seem to enjoy yourself while you were here, little Warden. We'll see how long that preference lasts. Once again, Naruto blushed and said nothing, knowing he'd lose this verbal battle, much to the fox's amusement. Noticing a letter on his nightstand, Naruto picked it up. It was addressed from Riizo. My lord, you seem to have passed out in my office after speaking to the Kyuubi. After ensuring you were all right, I took you back to your house. Don't forget, you still need to meet with your teammates. Loyal servant, Kage Riizo. Naruto smiled at the letter, touched by Riizo's thoughtfulness. He quickly changed his pants and headed to the training ground, knowing he'd have to explain things to his team. Training Ground 22 AI was sitting with Tobai-sensei and Shuichi, waiting for Naruto. He had tried talking to Tobai about their performance yesterday, trying to kill time, but their new sensei had told them to wait. Finally, they saw Naruto arrive, a slight flush on his cheeks. Shuichi noticed the flush and asked, Everything okay, my lord? You look unwell. Naruto was about to laugh it off but was beaten to the punch by Tobai. Oh, if Tobai didn't know better, he'd say Naru-chan got lucky last night. AI blushed slightly at the thought, then felt a surge of jealousy, though it was quickly pushed down by Naruto's response. No, Tobai-sensei, it wasn't like that. I just learned something last night. Naruto started, with Tobai motioning for him to continue. I have the Kyuubi sealed inside me, and he may have done something before giving me his name, he finished in one long breath. Shuichi, who had caught the last part, growled slightly. No one is allowed to take liberties with my lord, even if he's a chakra entity, he thought, feeling protective. AI didn't fully understand, but shrugged it off as unimportant. Tobai giggled at the thought of what Kurama might have done to his little Naru-chan. After a brief pause, Tobai began to evaluate his students. All right, Gloomy, you're good with your bloodline and axes. Tobai didn't think you could make them out of bones, good job. You've also got decent proficiency with shadow techniques. However, your throws are too slow. Most Chunin could dodge them easily. We'll work on your conditioning and improving your throws. To that end, we'll start with resistance seals, which I'll explain later. Tobai then turned to AI. Tobai finds you interesting. Unlike the others, you don't have clan techniques, but your unique style catches enemies off guard, and your speed is impressive, at least low Chunin level. That said, your chakra levels are decent, allowing for good control. You've been channeling chakra through your limbs and wires to move faster and control your weapons better. We'll need to work on your speed and find some genjutsu that complements your style. AI nodded dutifully as Tobai moved on to Naruto. And finally, Naru-chan, your speed and technique are good, especially using your Uzumaki chains. But you only utilize the physical aspect of the chains. You need to apply offensive seals on your targets. Also, you're lacking power behind your strikes. We'll focus on your mother's seals and work with a gravity seal. At Naruto's nod, Tobai grabbed an ink brush and applied various seals to the team's bodies. Shuichi and AI felt the weight of resistance, while Naruto felt as though he was carrying extra weight. Tobai jumped up. Now, let's run 3 laps around Uzushio and finish with a lap to the Uzukage Tower for our first mission. 4 hours later, the exhausted and sweaty Team 3 found themselves in front of the Uzukage's desk. Riizo raised an eyebrow at Tobai before speaking. All right, we have several D-rank missions today. Painting a fence, walking dogs, babysitting at the orphanage, transporting fish from the docks, or watering the Kaguya's garden. Which would you prefer? AI sweat dropped at the missions but said nothing, seeing that his friends had expected this. Tobai looked thoughtful for a moment. Tobai chooses the garden mission. 1 hour later Naruto found himself back at his house, resting after the surprisingly smooth garden mission. Who would have thought the clan known for bloodshed would be good at gardening, he thought. Kurama, his perverted tenant, decided to make his presence known again. Just because someone enjoys a good fight doesn't mean they can't appreciate softer things. Naruto blinked in surprise. That was unexpectedly deep coming from you, Kurama. Kurama chuckled. Come back here and I'll show you just how deep I can be, Warden. Naruto sighed, a light blush coloring his cheeks. And there's the pervert I'm growing used to. This is going to be a daily thing, isn't it? The only response was a satisfied chuckle from Kurama. 4 months later, the past few months had been long and exhausting for Team 3. Between ridiculous missions and their eccentric sensei, they were beginning to feel worn out. However, they couldn't deny the progress they'd made in their sealing techniques. Naruto had gotten strong enough to bruise a Chunin's ribs with his staff and was now a high-level Chunin in the sealing field. He could apply explosive and weight seals to various objects, including his weapons and chains. Additionally, he had discovered his wind affinity and mastered a few wind-based jutsu. Shuichi had greatly improved his speed with his bone axes, but was still struggling to incorporate his lightning affinity into his fighting style. AI had made the most progress, reaching low Jounin speed levels, and had upgraded his sword to hold all his wired hooks at once. He'd also learned some genjutsu and begun mastering the silent killing technique. The team stood in front of the interim Uzukage, waiting for their next mission. Riizo met their gaze and spoke with authority. Team 3, you have 2 important missions. The team stood at attention. First, we have a C-rank mission from Tsunami of Nami no Kuni. As part of an alliance treaty, your mission is to assassinate Gato. The genin looked grim but nodded in acceptance. Second, Tsunami's father has left for Konoha, requesting a mission as bodyguards. They shouldn't interfere with yours, but if you cross paths, remember no witnesses. Your next mission comes from the Mizukage of the Mist. Riizo started, noticing a subtle wince from AI and a slight glare from the other 2 genin. Riizo smirked at their reactions, seeing it as a sign of their strong bond. It seems the faction loyal to the Mizukage has emerged victorious in their internal struggle. Now, the Mizukage wants to recall the rogue 7 swordsmen. One such rogue is currently working under Gato Mamachi Zabuza. Because he doesn't trust a messenger from the mist, he's asked us to act as an intermediary. 4 reasons he believes we can be trusted. This mission is classified as B rank due to the involvement of a known rogue ninja and the importance of boosting our standing among the other villages. Tobai gave a quick salute before spinning around to face his team. All right. Tobai believes this mission might take a while, so make sure you're all packed. We'll leave in 2 hours. Mist-covered clearing team, 7 Fu observed her lazy, perverted sensei collapsing just as the hunter ninja took Zabuza's body away. She sighed, disappointed at her misfortune, as she carried Kakashi's body towards the client's house, and it looked like it was going to be such an easy mission too. Despite their client's drunken insensitivity, the mission had been going relatively smoothly. They had been warned about potential rogue ninjas, and they'd even managed to handle them. After spotting a poorly executed genjutsu involving a puddle in the middle of a dry spell, Fu used her modified Kikaichu to capture one of them, her tiny tailed beetles, reminiscent of the Nanabi sealed within her, stinging their prey with a paralytic toxin. Sasuke had swiftly decapitated the other before they could properly spring their ambush. But things quickly spiraled out of control. They were confronted by the rogue S-class ninja, Mamachi Zabuza, and after a brief fight in which Kakashi revealed his Sharingan, the lazy Jounin found himself captured. Thankfully, Sasuke had quickly devised a plan, combining his Kenjutsu with Fu's insects to force Zabuza to release Kakashi. The battle ended shortly after with Kakashi matching Zabuza's style. But just before delivering the final blow, a hunter ninja arrived, swiftly ending Zabuza's life with well-placed senbon needles. Yep, this is just great, Fu thought, reviewing the events that had led to her carrying her sensei. 3 days later, things seemed to go from bad to worse. Kakashi had revealed that Zabuza was not actually dead, and now they were all eating breakfast together. Kakashi sat up and spoke seriously. We have 4 individuals approaching. Their chakra levels are too high to be mere civilians. Be ready for a confrontation. He quickly gave orders. Sasuke moved his hand closer to his sword, while his teammates readied their weapons. Suddenly, a knock echoed through the door. Before Tsunami could answer, Kakashi stopped her and gestured for Sakura to open it. She opened the door to find 3 teenagers, about her age. 2 wore headbands with the swirl symbol typically seen on Chunin and Jounin, while the other wore a pendant with the same symbol. The last person looked like an ANBU with a swirl mask. The ANBU-like figure stepped forward. "Hello, little girl. Is your team leader in? We need to discuss our respective missions." He looked past her at Kakashi and their clients and quickly made a decision. He brushed past the red-dressed teen, who sputtered in confusion, and addressed Tsunami first. "Ah, Tsunami-san, we're the team you requested for this situation. Tazuna-san, we'll talk later about hiring teams without consulting your daughter. You never know when you'll hire from rival villages." Tazuna began to sweat, cursing his drunken mistake. Kakashi, observing the interaction, spoke up. "So, who exactly are you for, and why are Uzushinobi here in Nami?" Tobai crossed his arms and appeared to pout, pointedly ignoring Kakashi. Naruto sighed. "Since Tobai-sensei isn't being diplomatic, I guess that's my job. I'm Uzumaki Naruto, to my right is Shimizu Ai, and to my left is Kage Shuichi. The childlike Jounin with us is our sensei Tobai." At the mention of Naruto's name, Kakashi's eye widened, and his book slipped from his hands. Naruto. Naruto squinted at Kakashi before a memory flashed in his mind. A masked ANBU with gravity-defying silver hair, playing with him in the orphanage at night when no one was watching. A small smile tugged at Naruto's lips. "It's been a while, in Uoniasan," he said simply. Tobai began to act as though he were crying. "Ah, you're so cruel to Tobai, Naru-chan." Sakura, finally finding some courage, spoke up. "Why are you wearing the symbol our village has used since its founding? Do you realize how disrespectful that is?" She stated this as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. The response she got was 4 blank stares from the Uzushinobi, a facepalm from her sensei, and her teammates repeatedly slamming their heads into the table. Is this girl serious?" Naruto finally asked. Ai nodded seriously. "I think she is." Naruto turned to Kakashi. "Want to explain to your genin why what she just said was a mistake?" Kakashi nodded and then addressed Sakura. "Sakura, the symbol you're referring to is the Uzumaki clan symbol. We wear it to honor the sacrifices the Uzumaki made since the founding of our village." Shuichi took the opportunity to speak up. "In fact, after the formal dissolution of our alliance due to actions by your citizens, Konoha is the one being disrespectful for still wearing the Uzumaki symbol." Sakura, flushed with embarrassment, tried to defend herself. "Well, I'm sure they're not as good as Sasuke-kun. The Uchiha clan is the greatest of all," she said, her fangirl persona rearing its head at the worst moment. A dark look crossed Shuichi's face as he reached into his coat. Naruto merely glared at Sakura, while Tobai looked worriedly at his final genin. Ai's reaction was perhaps the worst. You could almost hear his mental snap as his hood fell off, revealing a crazed grin. "What did you just say, you pink-haired little?" He growled, voice dripping with malice. "You might want to keep that filthy tongue of yours in check before someone rips it out of your mouth." Sakura stood, frozen in fear, at the sight of the genin's sudden change. Tobai quickly placed a hand on the mad genin's shoulder. "Akuma, would you like to go hunt for dinner with Tobai?" Akuma inhaled deeply, remembering his lessons in control before nodding. "Fine." But these little heathens shouldn't speak such blasphemy when in the presence of the Exalted One. The two quickly exited the building before things could escalate. Naruto just rubbed the bridge of his nose in exasperation. Well, at least this time, it took a more direct insult. That's a bit of improvement. He gave a nod to the other team before standing. Well, as delightful as this has been, I think we should take our leave. Farewell. In U7, Uchiha-san Banshee. Tsunami, you can expect his head once the bridge is completed. As Naruto left, Shuichi lingered for a moment, staring at the pink-haired Kunoichi. A word of advice, don't mock the Uzumaki in front of me or AI. I can control myself, but he won't hesitate to slit your throat in your sleep if you push him too far, and I might just turn a blind eye. With that, he turned and followed his teammates. Once the rest of Team 7 had collected themselves, Fu spoke up. Congratulations, Pinky, you just made an unnecessary enemy for us on this mission. Kakashi-sensei, you seem to know Naruto. Can you tell us anything about him? Kakashi hummed thoughtfully. I used to know his mother when I was a genin. From what I remember of the stories she shared with us, Uzumaki are skilled with sealing techniques and scythes. In fact, that weapon he carries looks suspiciously like his mother's. I've always wondered what happened to it. Noticing his team was listening intently, Kakashi continued. Also, his mother was almost always followed by her shadow, another Kage who was very skilled with throwing axes. It seems young Naruto has followed in his mother's footsteps. Kakashi set his book down and became serious. Hopefully, we won't have to face them, but if we do, no killing. That's an order from both your sensei and the Hokage. He's issued that unless it's an emergency, Uzumaki Naruto is not to be killed or seriously harmed. Team 3, in a clearing away from the small house, the Uzu shinobi prepared camp and began cooking a boar Akuma had caught before switching out with AI. Tobai says gather round. Tobai shouted, waiting for his team to gather in front of him. Tobai did some recon, and Gato would be too much trouble to get to from his base. But there's some interesting gossip that he plans to attack the bridge in 4 days, intending to betray Zabuza and kill him when he's vulnerable. This will be the perfect opportunity to complete both of our missions. He paused, letting the information sink in before Naruto spoke up. So, we save Zabuza, earn his trust, and take out Gato at the same time. Tobai nodded enthusiastically. You're right, Naru-chan. Shuichi grinned slightly to himself. If everything goes according to plan, I might have time for a quick detour to Gato's headquarters and take a closer look at his operation. AI simply nodded wearily. Now we just wait for the bridge assault. Let's hope the Konoha shinobi don't mess things up. The Uzu shinobi nodded in agreement and continued with their tasks around the camp. Nami no Kuni, the moment had finally arrived. Team 3 had been monitoring the bridge, prepared in case Tobai's intel turned out to be incorrect. On the 4th day, a heavy fog rolled in over the bridge. Tobai, sensing the chakra in the air, immediately recognized the fog as a result of hidden mist jutsu, signaling his team to move in as the Uzu nin stepped into the mist. Now engulfed in fog, the team could barely make out Hatake Kakashi in a duel with Zabuza, who was skillfully wielding his Kubikirabacho. Zabuza, a man with dark brown hair and a bandaged lower face, wore striped gray pants and camo-colored arm and leg warmers. His black shinobi sandals completed his look, along with a slashed kiri hit gate on his forehead. Further away from the fight, the Uchiha and the teal-haired genin were surrounded by a dome of ice mirrors. Beyond the battle, the pink-haired genin was guarding the bridge builder diligently. Suddenly, Naruto noticed the situation shift. Kakashi had broken off from Zabuza, wounded by a kunai, and was preparing a series of hand seals. In the ice dome, Naruto sensed a dark chakra emanating, signaling a shift. Without hesitation, Naruto moved towards his fellow Jinchuriki, while Tobai prepared to step in between Zabuza and Kakashi. Team 7, Fu regretted her decision to enter the ice dome. Whatever jutsu the imposter hunter nin was using, it was formidable. The mirrors allowed the masked nin to move too quickly for her bugs to latch onto, and the ice was too strong for Sasuke's fire to melt. As she watched Sasuke start to falter from the barrage of ice senbon, Fu decided it was time to act. Back at the academy, she had been informed by Jiraiya, one of the Sannin, of her status as a Jinchuriki. He had helped her with controlling the Biju's chakra. For now, she could manage up to one tail of the Nanabi's chakra. The moment Fu tapped into the Nanabi's chakra, a crimson cloak enveloped her, and a chakra tail sprouted from her back. With her enhanced perception, she could see the masked nin's movements clearly. She darted forward and shattered the mirror, seizing the masked nin by the face. The contact, combined with the corrosive chakra, caused the jutsu to collapse. Just as Fu prepared to unleash her insects on the captor, black chains erupted from the bridge and bound her, forcing her to release her grip. Now 7. We can't have you killing Zabuza's ally over a small misunderstanding, can we? Fu glared at the black-clad Uzu genin from earlier in the week. What are you doing here? And why do you keep calling me 7? Naruto smirked. The fox mentioned the beetle. Oh, and he says hello. He quickly quieted down, muttering something about perverted foxes. Regaining composure and unsheathing his scythe, he continued. As for why we're here, it's simple. We're fulfilling our mission. A chill ran down Fu's spine as the crimson-haired shinobi moved closer. This isn't good. I can't break free from these chains. Sasuke's out of it. Sakura's likely occupied with her teammates, and Kakashi-sensei is still dealing with Zabuza. What do I do now? Meanwhile, Kakashi had summoned his hounds to restrain Zabuza and was preparing to strike with an electrified hand. Just as he was about to land the blow, a masked, cloaked figure appeared and interrupted his attack. Hold on, Kakashi-san. Tobai can't let you end Zabuchan's life yet. Before Kakashi could respond, clapping echoed in the mist. The fog cleared, revealing Gato standing on the other side of the bridge. Behind him was a small army of bandits. Seems the so-called demon couldn't even take down a bunch of kids and an old man. Pathetic, Zabuza glared at his employer. What are you doing here, Gato? Gato smiled smugly. Did you actually think I'd honor your ridiculous fee, though I hoped you'd at least finish the job? Oh well, filthy bastard, Zabuza shouted, using his sword to keep himself upright. Gato slammed his cane onto the bridge and barked orders to his bandits. Kill the men, but bring the women to me. I've got plans for them, especially the redhead. As his men cheered, they didn't notice the murderous intent washing over the bridge from two figures. Naruto glared at Gato, releasing Fu from the chains. He stepped between the gathered shinobi and the bandits, noticing a hoodless AI standing beside him, exuding his own killing intent. At his raised brow, Akuma explained, they plan to capture the Exalted One for despicable purposes. AI has granted me permission to handle this. Naruto nodded, and Akuma began a series of hand seals, water-style, hidden mist jutsu. Once more, mist descended over the bridge, but only on one end. The two genin disappeared within the fog, but the jounin could still see their figures. The rest of Team 7 only saw blurred movements. Moments later, the sound of pierced flesh and agonized screams filled the air. The battle ended within 10 minutes, the bandits falling with ease. The fog parted, revealing Naruto and a now hooded AI, both covered in blood, with Naruto holding Gato's severed head in his left hand. The bridge had become a bloodbath, with bodies hanging from the rafters by ninja wire. Fu could see Sakura on the verge of throwing up, but she couldn't really blame her. Near Kakashi, the Uzu jounin, Tobai, was conversing with Zabuza and his accomplice. The two missing nin exchanged words before vanishing. Fu noticed the redhead approach her, his teammate following closely behind. I have a very important question for you, 7, Naruto began. Do I really look like a girl? Everyone within earshot almost face-planted. Fu took a moment to study him. Well, your face is a bit feminine, and with the hair length and jewelry I could see how someone might think so. Seeing his growing frustration, Fu quickly added, from a distance of course. Up close you definitely look like a guy. Naruto growled quietly, while AI snickered behind him. I'll have you know this Kenseiken was an heirloom from my mother Titeben. At Fu's raised eyebrow, Naruto stormed off, AI following closely behind. Fu called after him, wait. My name is Fu, not 7, damn it. The Konoha genin noticed Naruto's disgruntled posture shift to one of happiness as he turned back to wave at Fu. Nice to meet you, Fu. The Uzu team soon departed, heading toward Tazuna's house. It wouldn't be until later, when Team 7 gave their report, that Fu noticed the third member of the Uzu team was nowhere to be seen. Team 3, it didn't take long for Naruto, AI, and Tobai to reach Tazuna's house, Gato's head trailing behind them. Shuichi awaited them outside. Everything's sorted. Gato's assets have been seized, and a good portion of his personal wealth was found in a safe behind his painting. Apparently, he didn't trust banks, the cage heir reported. The team chuckled as they entered. They found Tsunami sitting at the table, sipping tea. The team sat down, placing Gato's head before her. Tsunami stared coldly at the head before addressing the Uzu team, giving special attention to the Uzumaki. With this, I will take up my mother's mantle. A small smile played on her lips. Let's make this official. As the future daimyo of Nami no Kuni, I, Maito Tsunami, hereby agree to the terms laid out by both the Uzukage and the daimyo of Uzu no Kuni. We will begin resource trade and work towards rebuilding a strong alliance with the Uzumaki, beginning with my coronation. The Uzu team nodded in agreement. We look forward to a long and prosperous relationship, Tsunami Dono, Naruto said, drawing from his diplomacy lessons from Riizo, the daimyo. With their mission complete, the Uzu team left Nami no Kuni, heading back to Uzu. Team 7 made their way back to Tazuna's house with their client. Despite their surprisingly minor injuries given the dangers they'd faced, Sasuke still needed some assistance walking. As they entered, Tazuna tried to make amends. I know I misrepresented the mission earlier, but maybe we can find another way to make it right. We have skilled carpenters who could help with the rebuilding efforts, and he was quickly cut off. Father, Tsunami said, turning toward him, while I understand your intentions, please don't promise anything without consulting me first. Tsunami addressed Team 7. I apologize, but any kind of treaty isn't feasible at this time. Tazuna stared at his daughter, surprised by her authoritative tone. Does this mean that? Tsunami nodded. Yes, I am assuming my mother's role as the daimyo of our country. A weary Sasuke glanced up at his sensei before asking in a low voice, I remember my father teaching me about politics. I thought only men could be daimyos. Kakashi sighed and rubbed the back of his head. Nami, like a few other nations, is matriarchal. Some people, like your father, may find it hard to accept. Kakashi bowed to Tsunami. Tsunami-sama, if I may ask, why can't you make an alliance with Konoha? Tsunami set her cup down with a sigh. I appreciate your team's efforts in protecting my father. Once we have the funds, we'll compensate your village as though this were an A-rank mission. However, due to a prior agreement with Uzu, we were meant to form an alliance with them. Given the breakdown of the treaty with Konoha and our rebuilding status, it's clear that such a treaty with Konoha would not serve our best interests. Kakashi nodded, signaling his team to leave and prepare to finish the mission. Hokage Tower, the aged Hokage, puffed on his pipe as he reviewed the details of Team 7's mission. He couldn't help but think about the changes in the academy and how they were affecting the new generation of ninjas. They were still learning jutsu, but now their training offered a wider range of skills, which he felt was essential. I doubt this team would have made it through intact under the old system, he mused to himself before addressing the team. On a C-turned-A-rank mission, your team encountered Uzu shinobi, including Naruto-kun and one of the 7 swordsmen of the mist. You were unable to secure a treaty with Nami, and Zabuza has likely gone to Uzu. Furthermore, you failed to seize any of Gato's assets. Hiruzen sighed and exhaled a calming puff of smoke. On the positive side, the main objective of the mission was achieved. We will receive the full A-rank mission payment, and we've earned the goodwill of Nami's daimyo. He stamped each of their mission reports. This mission will be marked as a success. Team 7, please head to the mission office for your payment. Kakashi, stay for a moment. Once the genin had left, Hiruzen relaxed in his chair. How did he seem? Riizo's been sending us updates, but I'd like a first-hand account. Kakashi nodded. Physically, he's fine. Mentally, he seems content with his teammates, but Hiruzen raised an eyebrow. But, Kakashi sighed. One of his teammates, Shimizu Ai, seems unstable. He has a disturbing obsession with Naruto. It's almost like he reveres him as a god. He's also taken on Riizo's brutality. Hiruzen looked concerned. Yes, that is troubling. We'll need to keep an eye on Ai if he participates in the Chunin exams. After dismissing Kakashi, Hiruzen sat back, contemplating the changes in Naruto. I've confirmed he's alive, but I can't help but wonder what changes he's gone through, being raised by Riizo. Uzukage Tower Riizo looked over his team. So, you made contact with Zabuza, saved his companion, and eliminated Gato. You've also ensured our alliance through the new daimyo. Furthermore, I see that the Uzumaki Shipping Corporation has filed its papers, setting up bases in several coastal villages. The interim Uzukage smirked slightly at his son. A successful mission, but were there any complications with the Konoha team? Tobai stepped forward. Not really. Tobai and Naruchan kept them from interfering, and we kept our groups separate. Tobai was a good boy, Riizo nodded to AI. Good to hear you controlled Akuma well when facing the Konoha nin. Keep it up. AI nodded, pleased with the praise. Riizo sighed. Now, the Chunin exams are coming up in Konoha. I'll be sending teams 3 and 4 as Uzu's representatives. Akasuke will accompany you, Naruto-sama, as additional protection. He'll let you participate in the exams without interference, but his duty is to protect you. Naruto wasn't thrilled about having a bodyguard, but understood the necessity. Team 3, you're dismissed. Naruto-sama, stay for a moment. Once the team had left, Riizo spoke. Shuichi ensured that our new acquisition is tied to your name. I need to know if you'd prefer to manage the company directly or use a proxy. I have someone in mind who's capable of handling the task with discretion. Naruto thought for a moment. I think a proxy would be best. I don't know enough about business to run it myself. Riizo smiled. Excellent choice, my lord. I'll inform Baiwako Sozin of his new role. Also, I have an incentive for the coming exams. If you make it to the finals, I'll bring your family's summoning contract with me. That should be a clear sign you're ready to face the head of the Scrolls clan. Naruto cheered at the thought of the contract but pouted slightly. I still don't get why you won't tell me what summons it is, Oji, Riizo chuckled. Not everything can be spoiled, Naruto-sama. The wait will make it all the more exciting. Naruto's pout deepened, but he soon left to find his friends, hopping across rooftops with a smile. It's nice to know I'm not alone out here. The voice of the Kyuubi echoed in his mind. I thought you liked men, but perhaps you'd prefer my feminine form, Naruto frowned. Baka Fox, I don't like her like that. She's more like a sister to me. Now be quiet for a while. Oh, Narukun, you're so harsh, the Kitsune teased, but Naruto quickly tuned her out, knowing he'd likely face consequences in his dreams that night. Suddenly, a smooth voice interrupted him. Ah, if it isn't Naruto-kun. Naruto looked over to see Kabuto in his red cloak. Hello, Kabuto, what's up today? Kabuto shrugged. They kicked me out of the hospital again, so I figured I'd check in with one of the few people who can challenge me mentally. I hear our teams will be in Konoha together. You up for the challenge? Naruto laughed. I'm sure my team and I will manage just fine. I'd be more worried about yours, though. Please tell me you didn't use your teammates for your weird jutsu. Kabuto frowned slightly. That's mean, Naruto-kun. I'm many things, but I'd never do that while they were alive. Naruto sighed. Well, I suppose that's something. Just watch yourselves in Konoha. I've got a feeling something's going to happen there. Kabuto nodded, and they said their goodbyes, each preparing for the coming exams. Training Ground 22 Tobai stood in front of his team. All right, over the next week, we'll be preparing for the Chunin exams. Remember, you're potentially in enemy territory. Show no weakness and be cautious about what you reveal. The genin nodded as Tobai began their training, doubling their seals and having them practice, first sparring with him, then with each other, and finally as a team against Tobai. This pattern continued until they were ready to head to Konoha. Uzushio Tower Riizo stared at a message he had received earlier in the week. It was from the new Hokage, Orochimaru, requesting Uzu to join Sound in an attack on Konoha. The message hadn't revealed the date, but Riizo quickly deduced the sender's identity. His agents had been tracking Orochimaru in Oto no Kuni, and now he was left wondering what to do next. Riizo was conflicted, unsure of the path to take. On one hand, joining Oto would allow him to benefit from the destruction of Konoha if the invasion succeeded. His vindictive nature enjoyed the thought of avenging his young lord's near death by crushing the village responsible. On the other hand, he could warn Hiruzen and hope the Hokage believed him and the message. Even if they did, it would make him an enemy of Oto. While he wasn't overly concerned about the strength of the new Sound village, he knew better than to underestimate someone like Orochimaru. Finally, there was the option of remaining neutral. It was likely the message had been sent to all the villages participating in the exams that were not aligned with Konoha, like Suna. If he could speak with their leaders, he might be able to arrange an escape plan for those who wanted to avoid the conflict, as well as a backup for if Orochimaru reacted poorly to the rejection. Riizo leaned back in his chair, rubbing his eyes in frustration. Neutrality seems best, but Naruto-sama and Kushina-sama will probably want to help Konoha. Riizo sat up and made his decision. He stamped the orders with the Uzushio seal and filed them away. I hope this is the right choice. He braced himself for the storm that would follow once the Chunin exams began. Konoha Team 7 gathered at their usual training spot, waiting for Kakashi. Fu, eager to start, voiced her impatience. "Why does he always take so long?" Fu complained. Just as she spoke, Kakashi appeared before them. Now, there's no need to be so harsh on your beloved sensei, Fu-chan, especially after I signed all of you up for the Chunin exams." Fu and Sakura cheered, while Sasuke gave a satisfied smirk. Kakashi looked at his team as they celebrated. "The exams start tomorrow at noon. Be ready for the fight of your lives." Without another word, the lazy Jounin vanished. Team 7 went their separate ways to prepare. Sasuke headed to the family training ground. Sakura went to the hospital to study medical jutsu, and Fu made her way to the Aburame compound to practice with her hive. However, before Fu could reach home, she heard a loud shout ahead. She rushed toward the sound, preparing her beetles for battle. Rounding the corner, she spotted a brown-haired academy student wearing a long-sleeved green shirt, gray pants, and blue sandals. A recognizable long blue scarf hung around his neck. Fu recognized him immediately as Konohamaru Sarutobi, the Hokage's grandson. The young boy was being held by a shinobi in a black, cat-like bodysuit, purple makeup on his face. A large, bandaged package with a tuft of brown hair was strapped to his back. Fu quickly noticed the Suna headband on the stranger's hood. The Suna shinobi growled at Konohamaru, "Watch where you're going, brat. Where I come from, disrespect like that would cost you a hand. Now apologize." Konohamaru, undeterred, shot back, "I'm not apologizing. You ran into me, you makeup freak." The Suna shinobi raised his fist, about to strike the Sarutobi heir. But just before the punch landed, Fu appeared behind the assailant, a long knife at his throat. Fu froze at the sudden arrival of a new figure. The teen behind the Suna shinobi had spiky black hair, was bare-chested, and wore black sleeves and pants with red straps. His Uzu headband was tied around his waist like a belt. Fu also noticed the strange necklace around his neck, made of red beads, and an upside-down triangle within a circle. The Uzu shinobi grinned ominously, his killing intent filling the air. "Well, I was starting to think finding the perfect offerings for Jashin-sama would be difficult. But here I am, with two perfect candidates, a boy and his abuser. Which one will be missed when you vanish?" Fu quickly intervened, not wanting things to escalate. "Excuse me, foreign shinobi, it would be wise to release the Hokage's grandson." The Uzu shinobi blinked, seemingly noticing her for the first time. The Suna shinobi quickly dropped Konohamaru, who ran to Fu's side. "Thanks for the save, Fu-chan," he said. Fu nodded, keeping her gaze fixed on the foreign shinobi. She motioned for Konohamaru to leave, and the academy student hurried off. "Are you two here for the Chunin exams? You should have your handlers with you. Wandering around the village isn't a good idea," Fu said coolly, trying to de-escalate the situation. The Suna shinobi began to sweat, still aware of the knife at his neck. "Well, I just wanted to get some air. I'll head back, just help me out of here." Fu glanced at the Uzu shinobi, who shrugged nonchalantly as he began to remove his knife. "I didn't feel like sticking around the idiot, so I slipped away." With that, the Suna shinobi quickly fled the area, leaving Fu alone with the strange Uzu shinobi. The black-haired teen seemed to be listening to something Fu couldn't hear before nodding to himself. He appeared next to her in an instant, draping an arm over her shoulder. "You know, Jashin has told me you would make a perfect priestess for his glory. May I have the honor of introducing you to our lord?" Fu shuddered as the teen pressed closer, his disturbing grin sending a chill down her spine. "I'd love to show you the painful ecstasy that comes with Jashin's embrace." Before the Uzu shinobi could continue, Fu's swarm of seven-tailed beetles attacked his arm. He screamed in pain as the beetles burrowed into his flesh, rolling on the ground in agony. "You damn son of a bitch." Fu watched him struggle, relieved that her insects had stopped him before anything worse could happen. When the teen finally removed the beetles, his arm was a bloody mess. Fu glared at him. "I don't know who you are or what Jashin is, but if you ever come near me again, I'll let my hive devour you whole, creep." The teen laughed, his smile tinged with madness. "Oh my dear, you can call me Menma. And I'll be more than happy to teach you about Jashin's glory. I look forward to our next meeting." With that, Menma vanished, leaving Fu to collect herself. "Shit. Is this what other villages send to the exams? We really need to be ready." Hokage Tower Naruto and his team sat across from the Hokage, having been called to his office immediately after signing in at the gate. Naruto studied the elderly Hokage carefully, something about him felt familiar. Hiruzen observed the Uzu shinobi before him. There was the masked Tobai, with his upbeat but suspicious personality, and Ai, whose reputation had raised some alarms. Then there was Shuichi, whose Kaguya traits had given away his Cage heritage. Finally, the genin who intrigued him most, Uzumaki Naruto, who was studying him just as intently as he was them. He also noted Akatsuki, who had previously worked closely with Mifune. I wonder how Naruto managed to bring someone Mifune valued so highly into his service. Hiruzen chuckled to himself before speaking. It's good to see you again, Naruto-kun. Naruto's eyes widened in recognition as a memory of a man in white and red robes flashed in his mind. Old man, Hiruzen chuckled as Naruto tackled him into a hug. The moment passed quickly, and the elderly Hokage's expression became more serious. I didn't call you here just for a reunion, Naruto-kun. As your country's daimyo, I need to ask you about your other team. Naruto nodded, his usual lightheartedness replaced by seriousness. As long as national secrets aren't involved, I'll answer. Hiruzen examined the registration papers for Team 4. Riizo included a warning about one Menma, claiming he belongs to a Jashinist faction from Uzu. I've recently uncovered some troubling information about this group. Can you tell me more and ease my concerns? Naruto let out a deep sigh. There's something not many know. Due to a certain set of circumstances, a faction of Jashinists swore eternal allegiance to my clan shortly after the Warring States era. Because of this, the head of the Uzumaki clan holds a unique privilege, the ability to defy their god without facing retribution. As for their beliefs, they require sacrifices to their god to maintain peace, often through human lives. Menma's been cautioned not to use your citizens as offerings, though if the exams still allow fatalities, I wouldn't be surprised if some perish at his hands. Hiruzen nodded thoughtfully, taking a drag from his pipe. Do you have control over him if he crosses a line? Naruto gave a quick nod. We've had our fair share of incidents with Jashinists attempting to harm civilians. There are many ways we can rein Menma in when he's with those who don't share his faith. Hiruzen studied the young daimyo before him. All right, he'll be under close surveillance, but he can proceed with the exam, as long as he doesn't harm any of my people. Outside of the exams, of course. Naruto nodded in agreement. If that's everything, Hokage-sama, we should take our leave. Hiruzen puffed on his pipe and gave a small nod. Yes, that's all for now, but we'll need to discuss your plans for the third phase of the exams. And don't be a stranger, Naruto-kun. It's been far too long since we had a proper chat. Naruto flashed a grin as he and his team began to leave. I'd like that, Jiji, but you're buying the ramen. With that, Naruto swiftly left via the window, leaving his team to follow behind, bemused. Hiruzen raised an eyebrow at Naruto's hasty exit and turned to the team. Does he always do that? Akatsuki sighed, a subtle twitch in his brow, and nodded towards the Hokage. Yes, and you have no idea how exhausting it is to keep an eye on him when he pulls stunts like that. The masked Jounin sensei chuckled and waved at Hiruzen before ushering his team out of the room in pursuit of the wandering Uzumaki. Hiruzen took another puff of his pipe, his mind wandering. Something about that masked man feels oddly familiar, and what's with them traveling with a samurai from Tetsu no Kuni? I might need to send some route agents to gather more information. Better safe than sorry. The next day, Konoha Academy, teams 3 and 4 from Uzu walked calmly toward the gates of Konoha's academy. Their registration slips indicating this was where the first exam of the Chunin exams would take place. Naruto observed the other team joining them, which included Kabuto, Ine, and Menma. The young Uzumaki hadn't had much chance to learn about the Jashinist, since their group lived in isolation and followed a separate training program to reduce the risks to those who didn't share their faith. As for the rest of the team, they seemed largely unchanged, though Naruto knew better than to judge based on appearances alone. The group made its way to room 301, avoiding a crowd that had been tricked by a genjutsu cast on room 201. Inside, they found a number of other genin already waiting for the exam to begin. Kabuto leaned in to catch Naruto's attention. We should separate our teams and gather intel on the others, he whispered. Naruto nodded and relayed the message to his teammates. He chose to stand near a cluster of Konoha shinobi who seemed deep in conversation. Among them, Naruto spotted Team 7 from the Wave mission. Alongside them was a teenager with spiky black hair tied in a ponytail and brown eyes. His attire consisted of a mesh t-shirt with green lining under a short-sleeved gray jacket with green edges, both sleeves and the back emblazoned with a circle, and a line through it. He wore his blue hityate tied around his left arm, brown pants, and blue sandals. There was also a stocky individual standing behind the lazy-looking genin. He had short brown hair and wore a red bodysuit with armor over his chest, legs, and arms. Naruto recognized the Akimichi clan symbol on the chest plate. If he's an Akimichi, his teammates are probably from the Nara and Yamanaka clans, Naruto mused. Lastly, there was a blonde girl with her arms draped around the Uchiha's neck, much to his obvious discomfort. She had long blonde hair tied in a ponytail and wore a purple sleeveless top that ended just above her stomach. Below, she wore a purple skirt that opened in the front, over a shorter black skirt, and fishnet shorts underneath. "Oh, Sasuke-kun, I'm so glad you made it. It's been so long since we caught up, you must tell me everything about your adventures." The blonde gushed, holding onto the irritated Uchiha. Fu noticed the Akimichi and Nara moving closer. "Hey Choji Shikamaru, it's been too long." Shikamaru nodded lazily at his old schoolmate and then addressed his teammate, "Ino, not now. Save it for later." The named Ino huffed and returned to her teammates. With her quieted down, Shikamaru turned to the others. "There are a lot of foreign genin here, so I suggest we work together and share information." Sasuke studied Shikamaru for a moment before nodding. "All right, we've gathered a little info on the Uzu teams." Shikamaru nodded. "We've learned a bit about the Kumo teams, but the Kiri and Iwa squads remain a mystery." Fu decided to contribute. "We know that one of the Uzu teams consists of Naruto Uzumaki, Kage Shuichi, and Shimizu Ai. Naruto seems skilled with his scythe, but we didn't get to see much in Wave. Ai uses hooks, wires, and a giant sword. Also, don't insult Naruto if you value your life." Fear flickered across Fu's face. Shikamaru raised an eyebrow. "Why?" Sakura shuddered at the memory. "I made some comments about Naruto out of ignorance back in Nami. The killing intent in the room was suffocating. Later, Gato made threats toward Naruto, and Shimizu snapped. It was a massacre after that." Sasuke cut in, redirecting the conversation. "As for Kage Shuichi, we never saw him fight. He wasn't even at the bridge." Fu snapped her fingers. "There's also the creepy guy with black hair and no shirt. Something's off about him." Shikamaru nodded gravely. "The Kage clan has some history with my family. They're known for using shadow techniques, though in a very different way than us Nara. They're often the unseen hands behind the Uzumaki. No one really knows how much the Uzumaki are aware of their shadow's actions." Sasuke nodded in agreement. "What about the Kumo genin?" Ino spoke up again, a smirk crossing her face. "We know about Samui, and Karui. They're likely Kenjutsu users, given their swords and Kumo's reputation." Ino paused, a gleam in her eye. "Rumor has it their sensei is from the Takebana clan, known for combining Raiten with their blades. We can probably expect Raiten jutsu from them." Naruto, having overheard enough, turned to rejoin his team, too focused to notice the third Konoha team watching him from the shadows nearby. "That's the one, right, Shino?" asked a wild-looking teen with a large white dog beside him. Shino nodded slightly, his gaze calculating. The wild teen turned to his other teammate. "What do you think, Hinata?" The girl hummed thoughtfully, her gaze still fixed on the retreating redhead. "I think he would look good in white robes." For some reason, the wild teen found himself growling at the comment, though he couldn't explain why. Back with Naruto, he shared the information he had gathered with his team, as well as some intel from Kabuto on the teams from Aim, Odo, and Iwa. The smaller villages had sent weaker genin, though Iwa had sent the Tsuchikage's granddaughter. We'll need to be cautious with her. We'll make sure Menma doesn't get near her." Suddenly, a loud explosion of smoke filled the room. "All right, maggots, quiet down and sit down. The first exam starts now." As the smoke cleared, a group of Chunin and a scar-faced man in a black bandana and trench coat stood at the front of the room. The genin quickly seated themselves, and one of the Chunin began distributing papers. Konoha Jounin Lounge. The Jounin Lounge had been rearranged for the Chunin exams, now configured to accommodate various Jounin sensei who were monitoring the progress of their students throughout the trials. Jounin from both Konoha and other villages were watching a screen as the first test began. Tobai sat at a table with the sensei of Uzu's Team 4. The man had the distinctive appearance of a Kaguya, including their usual loose white kimono shirt and black baggy pants, with a crimson rope tied around his waist, a large knot in the back. "Tobai wants to know who this new guy is. Any ideas, Kimi-kun?" The slightly eccentric Jounin asked. Kimimaro rubbed his forehead, visibly annoyed. No, Tobai, I'm just as clueless as you are. The two were soon joined by a silver-haired, one-eyed Jounin. I can provide some insight. That man is Morino Ibiki, a specialist in mental torture. The Kaguya narrowed his eyes at the interloper. And why would you share this information with us, Konoha scum? Kakashi blinked at the hostile tone from the Uzu Jounin. I'm just trying to help our old allies from Uzu. Before Kimimaro could retort, Tobai slammed his hand onto the table. Tobai is so happy to see pervert-san again. How you been? Tobai has been a good boy since Nami, yes. A good boy. Kakashi slowly nodded, slightly regretting trying to dig into more information about Naruto. Yeah, I've been fine, Tobai. So I see you entered your team in the exams. Do you think they're ready? Tobai nodded enthusiastically. Tobai's team is definitely ready to ace the exams. They're good boys, just like Tobai. The Kaguya spoke up, his attention now on the screen. Moron, trash, quiet down. The exam is starting. Konoha Academy, the scarred man began speaking again, as the Chunin took their seats along the walls with clipboards in their hands. I will be your proctor for the first exam, Morino Ibiki. The first exam is a simple written test. Each of you starts with 10 points, and for each incorrect answer, you lose 1 point. If you lose all 10 points, not only do you fail, but your entire team fails. This caused a wave of surprise among the participants, and Ibiki couldn't help but smile slightly. Now, do you see my colleagues lining the walls? They are here to keep an eye on you for any signs of cheating. If you are caught cheating 3 times, your team will fail. Finally, if you look at your paper, you'll notice the 10th question is blank. That question will be given to you near the end of the exam. Smirking at the now sweating candidates, Ibiki decided to start his show. Begin! For the most part, the Uzu teams managed to breeze through the questions, largely due to Kabuto. Though the questions were more advanced than a genin might typically know, Kabuto had always been a genius for his age. After completing his answers, he used a coded sequence of taps that he was sure Naruto and his team would recognize to pass on the answers. Unfortunately, Menma didn't bother to learn the coded language and chose a more drastic solution, typical of a Jashinist. Halfway through the exam, he got up from his chair and walked over to a fellow genin who appeared to be done writing. He quickly checked the paper to confirm it was finished, then slammed the unconscious genin's face into the desk repeatedly and snatched the paper. After returning to his desk, Menma erased the other teen's name and put his own in its place. Soon a shadow loomed over him. Looking up, he saw the frown of the proctor. What do you think you're doing? The Jashinist raised an eyebrow. By my count, I cheated once, so my team and I should be fine, right, Proctor-san? The scarred man glared down at him, then addressed the rest of the genin. New rule. Anyone who attempts to repeat this incident will be disqualified immediately. This quickly shut down any hope that some genin might have had. With 30 minutes left on the clock, the proctor halted the exam. All right, maggots, before I give you the final question, you all have a decision to make. You can opt to leave now, along with your team, and try again next year. Ibiki was quickly interrupted by the shouts of the participants. What the hell? Why would anyone choose that? The scarred man smirked, subtly releasing a bit of killing intent. However, if you choose to stay for the final question and get it wrong, no matter how many points you have left, you fail the exam and can never become a Chunin. Ibiki let the outraged cries fill the air for a moment before cutting them off. If you have a problem with this, then simply leave right now and complain to your leaders back home. Most of the genin managed to steal their resolve, but some were forced out by their teammates' lack of confidence. With 5 minutes left, Ibiki decided to put an end to the tension that had been building in the room. For those of you that remain, you pass. Before anyone could voice their confusion, they were interrupted by a large black ball bursting into the room from the window. The ball quickly opened to reveal a banner that read, "The Sexy and Single Mitarashi Anko." In front of the banner stood a purple-haired woman, wearing a tan trench coat over a mesh shirt that barely covered her breasts, an orange skirt, and shin armor. All right, wimps, I'm the proctor for the second exam, Mitarashi Anko, she began, before a voice interrupted her speech. You're early by 5 minutes, Anko, Ibiki remarked from behind her banner. Anko's eyebrow twitched, but before she could start yelling at her colleague, she took note of the large number of genins still in the room. Really, Ibiki? You must be getting soft if you passed this many genin, big guy. The scarred proctor sighed. Or maybe there's just a better crop of candidates this year. The purple-haired proctor scoffed. Whatever, by the time I'm done, more than half the teams will be gone. Anko turned back to the fidgeting genin. All right, maggots, you got off easy with Ibuki's little test, but meet me at training ground 44 within an hour. If you're late, you fail. And with that, Anko jumped out of the window. It took a few seconds for what had just happened to sink in, and then the Chunin hopefuls quickly jumped to their feet, either heading for the training ground or scrambling to find directions. Naruto gathered his fellow Uzu genin, and they silently followed the Konoha teams to the training ground. The Kage mulled over the information for a moment before giving a nod. I suppose you're right, but I still consider them worthy targets. Naruto took the advice of his companions into account. There are other teams out there that will likely be targeting the Konoha squads as well. 2 of them have Hyuga members, and I doubt the Kumo team will let them off easily. Iwa, on the other hand, will probably target Konoha teams out of tradition. He let out a frustrated sigh, continuing, if we come across any Konoha teams, we can check if they have the scrolls we need. But honestly, they'd be too much of a nuisance to target directly. His comrades nodded in agreement as they made their way toward their entry point. As the time approached, the proctor's voice echoed through the speakers, begin. The buzzer rang out, and the various Chunin hopefuls rushed forward through the gates. Forest of Death Team 3 made their way swiftly through the trees, focused on their objective. 2 days had passed since the second exam had begun. Naruto's team had managed to secure their second scroll from the AIM team, though they were delayed en route to the tower by a pack of oversized tigers. After dispatching the tigers, the group had noticed nightfall approaching and decided to set up camp in a hollowed-out tree. Now, standing before the towering structure of Training Ground 44's designated tower, the trio entered the building, greeted by a vast, empty room. Naruto turned to his teammates, so, what now? I guess the scrolls will tell us what we need to do next, Shuichi said, as he pulled out their Heaven and Earth scrolls. Opening the scrolls, Naruto noticed pieces of a summoning matrix. He quickly dropped the scrolls to the ground, and they clattered to a stop. A burst of smoke billowed from the unrolled sealing paper. Tobai knew his students would pass this silly test, came the excited, childlike voice from within the rapidly fading smoke. Naruto sighed at the sight of his masked sensei. So, what now, Tobai-sensei? Nothing for now, Tobai replied. We still have to wait until time's up to see how many teams made it through. After that, we'll figure out what happens. Shuichi looked puzzled. What do you mean, sensei? Aren't we just going to move on to the third exam? Tobai shook his head. Not exactly, my little student. There's only a limited time for the third exam, and if too many teams pass the second exam, a preliminary round is often required. Understanding dawned on the team, and they nodded. Now, off you go, Tobai continued. Tobai needs to collect his payment, and you all should rest up for what's next. 3 days later, Naruto watched intently as the genin battled below in the tower's arena, his scythe resting against the railing. It had been decided that too many teams had passed, requiring the preliminary round. Both of his teammates had already defeated their opponents, 2 no-name genin from Oto. Currently, the fighters were from Konoha and Suna, Aburame Shino and Sabaku Kenkuro. The Suna shinobi was the first to make a move, setting down his wrapped bundle and preparing to charge the hooded Aburame with his kunai. Naruto observed with narrowed eyes. Something's off about this. Tobai's masked face appeared on Naruto's shoulder as he leaned in to ask, Oh, and why's that, Naruto-kun? Startled by his sensei's sudden presence, Naruto took a moment to respond. Well, Suna's not known for producing many shinobi compared to the other villages. They often rely on ambush tactics. For this genin to charge head-on like this, either he's a miracle of the academy or there's more to his plan. Tobai nodded. Very well reasoned, Naruto-kun. Though I think you're overlooking a key factor when facing a Suna ninja. As the two spoke, the fight below continued. Shino skillfully dodged the kunai strikes, searching for an opening in his opponent. Finally, Kenkuro overextended, giving Shino the chance to drive a kunai into his chest. Kenkuro looked down, wide-eyed, at the weapon embedded in his chest. A hushed silence fell over the arena. Ai was the first to catch something, his eyes drawn to the abandoned, wrapped bundle at the edge of the arena. Puppeteer, he muttered, the word audible enough for others to hear. Shino's eyes widened behind his glasses, cursing himself for not noticing earlier. Just as he attempted to retreat, the stabbed form of Kenkuro blurred, and a wide, toothy grin appeared as its limbs stretched and wrapped around the Konoha genin. Laughter echoed from the wrapped bundle. As the Suna ninja emerged from his hiding spot, his left arm outstretched toward the puppet, the copy wrapped around Shino revealed itself as a six-limbed, three-eyed puppet with a tattered cloak and shaggy brown hair. From its puppet-like mouth, a sharp spike extended toward Shino's neck. "So, how do you like Karasu? Pretty lifelike, huh? Do us a favor and give up so we don't have to clean up your corpse," Kankuro taunted with glee. Shino's hooded face remained focused on the puppet, his expression unreadable. Kankuro shrugged. "Your choice," he said, twitching his finger to make the puppet drive its spike into Shino's neck. However, to Kankuro's shock, instead of blood, Shino dissolved into a cloud of black insects, which swarmed the puppet. "You shouldn't have gloating," Shino's voice came from behind the startled Suna ninja. "Why?" "Because you gave me a chance to replace myself. I planted a female Kadechu on your person. Surrender, or I'll let the males devour you." Kankuro paled, recalling the gruesome rumors about the pain those creatures caused. With a nervous gulp, he raised his hand. I surrender." A round of applause rippled through the arena, while a blonde Suna Kunoichi could be heard shouting at Kankuro as he returned to the stairs in defeat. Before leaving the arena, Shino took a moment to look up at the dark-haired, crimson-clad Uzumaki in the stands. After a pause, he seemed to nod to himself and rejoined his team. Naruto turned to his teammates in confusion, which only deepened as he noticed them glaring at the Konoha ninja. "Does anyone know why he was staring at me?" he asked, avoiding mentioning the looks his friends were giving Shino. Tobai decided to step in, preventing any potential conflicts. Well, Tobai thinks it's because Shino wants to join the greatness of Uzu, or maybe he thought you'd make a tasty meal. I hear things about the buzzing clan, Tobai mused. Naruto shivered at the unsettling implication of his sensei's words. Before they could discuss further, the screen flashed again, showing the next match. Uzumaki Naruto vs. Shimura Sai. Naruto cheered, jumping into the arena. His opponent calmly walked down the stairs and took his position, a fake smile on his face. "Begin," the proctor called as he jumped out of the arena. Sai swiftly retreated, creating distance between them as he summoned several animated ink lions to launch an attack. As the lions approached, Naruto drew his scythe, twirling it around his body. The first lion came within range, and with a swift twist, he sliced it in half. The second lion attacked, but Naruto blocked it with the blunt end of the scythe and then spun to strike down the third. With the remaining lions dispatched, Naruto faced his opponent. During the brief skirmish, Sai had been preparing his next attack. From his scroll, he summoned a group of 7 ink birds, their beaks and wings sharper than ever. Seeing the incoming danger, Naruto performed a series of hand signs. Suten, hidden mist jutsu. A thick mist flooded the arena, disorienting the birds as they began to search for their target. Occasionally, the audience heard scratching sounds, followed by the unmistakable noise of flesh being cut. After a few moments, a calm voice rose from the mist. "I can hear your blood leaking, Uzumaki-kun." As the mist cleared, the crowd saw Naruto grinning despite the blood trickling down his arm. 3 ink birds remained, and quickly focused on their target. Before they could strike, Naruto placed his bleeding hand on the ground and released a pulse of chakra. Chains burst from the walls and floor, 4 spiked chains impaling the birds and piercing Sai's limbs, leaving him suspended in the air. Naruto walked calmly over to the helpless genin. "I don't enjoy fights like this, but Tobai-sensei would be upset if I didn't go all out. Please surrender, Konoha-san," Sai sighed, slowly nodding. "I surrender," Naruto smirked, releasing his seals and retracting the chains. As he returned to the stands, his teammates grinned at him. Behind him, Sai was carted off on a stretcher to tend to his injuries. Ai shifted uneasily as he saw his name called next, alongside Karui from Kumo. Standing across from her in the arena, Ai took note of the Kunoichi's sword, a kenjutsu practitioner, likely skilled in some of Kumo's lightning techniques. "Begin!" Almost immediately, the red-haired Kumo ninja charged, her blade already half-drawn. Ai threw a quick hook toward her, hoping to slow her down, as he began forming the hand seals for his hidden mist jutsu. Karui growled as the fog filled the arena. She quickly lost sight of the other genin, halting her charge to avoid walking into a trap. Slowly, she turned and held her sword before her, listening for any sound or movement that would reveal the Uzu shinobi's position. Then she heard it, a series of footsteps from her right. The Kumo ninja swiftly spun around, slashing her sword. Unfortunately for her, AI had been watching for the gleam of the blade and dodged just in time, rushing past her guard. Getting close, AI delivered a chakra-infused kick to send her airborne before following after her. From the stands, Naruto watched as AI began his assault on the Kumo ninja midair. The pattern was familiar for the hooded genin, although in the past few encounters, the blade had aimed for far more lethal areas of the target's body. AI typically sought to keep his opponents in a position where they couldn't strike back, wearing them down with small, debilitating blows. After what seemed like enough damage, AI allowed the Kumo ninja to fall, her body covered with numerous small cuts leaking blood. To his surprise, Karui pushed herself up again, wavering slightly but her eyes filled with determination. "Fine then, jerk, guess it's my turn." With that, sparks of lightning crackled around her blade. She charged again at the heavily breathing Uzu ninja. The effort from his previous attack had left AI winded, but he barely managed to dodge an overhead slash. However, the lightning surrounding her sword lashed out at the last moment, searing its way up his arm. AI's knees buckled as he rubbed his hand over the burns, a wry grin crossing his face. "Quite the weapon you have there, Kumo-san." Karui frowned for a moment before a grin spread across her face. "A gift from my sensei, and this is just a fraction of the power it can channel. You should surrender now, before I have to humiliate you in front of everyone." AI flexed his injured arm, barely feeling it respond, glancing at his weapons. Water techniques would likely worsen his condition, and the metal in his weapons would likely react badly with the lightning. I don't see a way out of this without going too far. I won't be of any use to Naruto-sama as a cripple. Besides, there's always next year." With that thought in his head, AI slowly relaxed his stance and raised his hand. "I give." A victorious look crossed Karui's face just before she collapsed. AI frowned, hearing the proctor announce Karui as the winner. "Damn, just a few more minutes and I might have had it." Back in the stands, AI received a sympathetic pat on the back from Naruto, as Tobai exaggeratedly cried out in the background. The hooded genin shrugged off the disappointment, distracted by his sensei's whispered words. "We need to work on your observation skills, I think, Shimizu-kun." AI simply nodded in agreement. As the remaining matches played out, there were some interesting ones, including an apparent rivalry between two Hyuga competitors, culminating in the heiress decisively defeating the branch house member. There was also a brief match between Shuichi and another AIM ninja, who had somehow advanced to this stage. The boy underestimated the cage air and paid the price, losing his life, to the shock of several competitors who had become accustomed to no deaths during the rounds. It was probably for the best, as it caused the proctor and various sensei to pay closer attention and act fast enough to save a Konoha ninja from a particularly psychotic Suna ninja with unusual sand techniques. With the last round complete, the Hokage stepped forward, drawing everyone's attention. "Congratulations to those of you who won your matches. You'll move on to the third exam in a month's time. To those who weren't successful, take heart. You lived to fight another day. Not all your competitors were so fortunate. Rest well, and be ready to show your leaders why you deserve promotion." With that, the various teams began to disperse, heading to their accommodations to rest and prepare for the upcoming exam. Konoha, it had taken a few days for Riizo and the other cages to arrive, but he finally made it, carrying a large black scroll on his back. Currently, he stood before his ward in a rarely used training ground. The Uzushio had ensured that they wouldn't be disturbed while he was with his young lord. Before him, Naruto was practically bouncing on the balls of his feet as he waited. "I did it, Oji. I made it to the final round," the Uzumaki prince declared excitedly. Riizo chuckled softly. "So you did, young lord. I suppose this means you're ready to sign the contract. But I must warn you, the summons of the Uzumaki clan are not forgiving. They will seek out your weaknesses and exploit them. This will be a trial that only you can complete. Do you still wish to proceed?" Naruto nodded seriously as Riizo laid the scroll on the ground before him and began to leave. "It would be best if I wasn't here when you try to summon the boss, young lord," Riizo said, noticing Naruto's confused look. Naruto nodded, and Riizo disappeared in a shunshin. Stealing his resolve, Naruto opened the scroll, pausing to stare at his mother's name written in blood, next to an empty space. The Uzumaki quickly bit his thumb and signed his name in the blood that leaked out. With his name now on the scroll, he went through the hand signs for the summoning jutsu. The moment his hand touched the ground, an explosion of smoke surrounded him. But to his surprise, when the smoke cleared, nothing was there. Naruto quickly looked around, but when he couldn't find anything resembling a summon, he began to go through the hand signs again. However, he was interrupted by a voice right behind his ear. My, how rude of our latest summoner, no greeting and already attempting to summon something else." Before Naruto could turn toward the voice, he felt something forcefully hit his back, knocking him to the ground. A pressure settled on his back, as though someone was sitting on him. Turning slightly, he caught sight of a pale, long-nosed figure wearing a frilly purple outfit, tapping a golden scepter against his knee. Who are you? And if it's not too much trouble, would you mind getting off me?" Naruto asked, the last part coming out as an angry growl. The figure frowned, then a crazed grin appeared on his face. You little Uzumaki, you can call me Arkham, and I don't think I'll get off you. I'm quite comfortable with my new seat. Besides, you didn't say the magic word." Naruto growled, but was quickly silenced when the figure tapped his head with his scepter. "Now boy, I assume you wanted to make a contract with the demon's summons." Naruto was about to respond, but opted to simply nod as the scepter was raised again. "Good boy, you're learning," Arkham said, condescendingly patting Naruto's head. "I may allow you to summon most demons, but there are conditions. First, the demon world is far too dreary. I want to be summoned at least once a week for my own amusement. Second, I demand 200 deaths in my name each time I am summoned. It's a demon thing. Finally, when I am summoned, you will be my servant. So do we have a deal?" As Arkham spoke, Naruto could feel his anger growing at the creature's ridiculous demands. At the last sentence, his temper exploded, along with his chakra. In response, chakra chains burst from his back, wrapping around the surprised Arkham and slamming him into the ground repeatedly. "Oh, how interesting. Am I sensing a bit of the fox's chakra mixed in with those chains? I suppose you don't agree with one of my terms." Naruto calmed himself enough to regain control of his chains, restraining the demon. "I take it you're the boss summons." Arkham smiled tauntingly. "One of them?" "One," the demon cackled. "Indeed, I hold dominion over most of them, but if you want to summon the more specialized ones, you'll have to negotiate with their leaders. If you release me, I may even introduce you to them." "What do you say, buddy?" Naruto frowned. "Not until we finish our deal." Finally, the grin disappeared from Arkham's face. "Fine, what are your terms? You can forget about the deaths or me becoming your servant. If you can behave, I'll summon you every so often." "Every other day," Arkham countered. "Once a week? Twice a week, and I'll even stay with you during that time to ensure I behave." Naruto sighed. He didn't want to be around the annoying clown too much, but he doubted he'd get a better deal. Besides, this way he could keep an eye on him. "Fine." The mad grin returned to Arkham's face as the chains retracted from around him. "Perfect, boy. A deal is struck, and we can all have some fun again." With that, the demon disappeared in a puff of smoke, leaving Naruto sitting in the middle of the field, wondering if his new ally would be worth the inevitable headache. For now, Naruto decided to put off figuring out his summons and wouldn't try to convince the other bosses at this time. After all, he had nearly a full month to figure it out. In the meantime, a much-needed bowl of ramen was waiting for him.